let's dive right in. So, music for the elder. Now we're going to be here a while. There's a lot to get through. Basically a bit of background. Unmasked didn't do well, particularly in the USA, but it was a big enough hit abroad to warrant a tour of Australia and Europe. But before they could even conceive of hitting the stage in full regalia, they needed a new drummer because Peter's gone. Peter's gone at this point. According to Paul, auditioning drummers was a strange experience. He said, "We didn't want anyone who was well known. We wanted someone who came out of nowhere. It wouldn't have made sense to have Anton Fig or a known commodity dress up as a black and silver giraffe." I don't know. Like, it's a weird way to shit on your own band. I don't know. So passive aggressive. But anyway, just shitting on your own band. Like, it's your band, mate. You know, if you think, yeah, it's silly. Yeah, I get it. Anyway, Paul, at this point as well, by the way, when he's talking about the drummers, he goes on this really weird tangential rant about double kick drums that goes on for absolutely ages. It's very, very weird.
What does he think
anyway,
about double kick
one
drums?
person
Sorry,
who auditioned.
What does he think about double kick drums?
He goes on this weird rant about John Bonham being like, it doesn't matter if they play one kick drum or two kick drums. They play two kick drums because John Bonham could do that on one bass drum. So he was saying that the only reason why people use two kick drums is because they want to replicate what John Bonham could do with one bass drum, which is absolute bollocks. Weird little man. Anyway, one person who auditioned was a little stove repairman named Paul Caravello. Now, according to Paul, he was tiny. Anyway, the first thing he did was ask... That's true, it's what he said. The first thing he did was ask for everyone's autograph, which is a very sweet thing to do, I think. I think that's quite sweet. Paul wasn't blown away by his playing. Oh my God, he just shits on everyone. Everyone. Just can't give people an inch. It's pathetic. Anyway, he wasn't blown away by Paul Caravello's drumming, but everyone else was. Everyone else was, particularly the management. The management were very into it. They thought he fit in very, 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 very well. He got a call back, and it turned out he had a good voice as well. He was, he had the same sort of rasp that Peter Criss had. He could do all the harmonies, and that seemed to, gel with them very, very nicely. They did have a problem, though. They wanted him to change his name, or there would have been 3 Pauls in the band. Ace, you might not be aware, Ace is also called Paul. I didn't know that. Yeah, he's called Paul. So there would have been 3 Pauls within the band. So they didn't want that. So they said, what name would you like? And Paul Caravello says his first suggestion was Rusty Blaze, which was vetoed incredibly quickly, apparently. However, his second suggestion was Eric Carr. According to Paul, the name sidestepped any hideous rock star cartoonish moniker. I think that just kind of means it's boring, right? It's just really boring.
Yeah, that's how I take it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Rusty Blaze, don't get me wrong, but, Adolf Hitler would be a better stage name than Rusty Blaze. It's just kind of boring, isn't it? They have a weird choice in stage names. In general, I've realised this. They're not... I mean, Ace Frehley's sort of like a rock star name, kind of a larger-than-life name. But for the most part, they're just kind of... Paul Stanley, Eric Carr, Peter Criss. Do you know what I mean?
Gene Simmons.
Yeah, I know. It's very, very strange. It's just kind of like boring sort of names. I mean, I found that. I mean, if you listen to certain interviews, I did an interview with JJ French, who's the guitarist of Twisted Sister, and he auditioned for Kiss. And I don't know what his real name is, but he said that Paul and Gene told him he had to change his stage name. Sorry, he had to change his name because it was too Jewish. So apparently the main reason why they shortened the names to... Because Gene Simmons' real name is Chaim Witz. And he changed it to Gene Klein as he wanted to sound less Jewish, apparently.
Okay. The fact that this is even like a talking point at all within the band is kind of ridiculous. Like I say, it's not... It really doesn't matter. And they separate themselves through how they look as well. So the names are really not a big deal in my eyes.
No, I know. And they don't really fit either. They've got such boring stage names for such like larger-than-life characters, like Peter Criss. Anyway. They liked him. They liked Eric Carr very much. And he joined as Peter's replacement. To show Eric that he was a valued member of the band, they brought him a Porsche, a silver Porsche. Eric asked if he could paint it camouflage. Paul told him no. It took a while to figure out.
Already a strange dynamic between these men. Yes, very strange.
Well, let him paint it camouflage. He did give a reason for not painting it camouflage because, with Paul, all stones to shit on someone must not be left unturned. So he did give a reason why he didn't want him to paint it camouflage. I can tell you it if you want.
Yeah?
It doesn't match the...
He said it didn't make sense. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said it didn't make sense to turn a slick European Porsche into some kind of amusement attraction. That's what he said.
Why did he need Paul's permission?
Because it's his Porsche. I don't know.
Said
if you'd bought me a guitar, Danny, let's say you got me a Strat, like a nice cream Strat, and I painted it camouflage, and I was like, thanks, Danny, I really appreciate that. Love the gift. And then next time you came around, it was camouflage. Would you be like?
I'd say, why did you take?
Or would you be like, no,
a nice American Strat and turn it into an amusement attraction? What was it?
Yeah, it's basically what
I
he said.
suppose, you got me there. But you wouldn't ask my permission. I guess he was new in the band. He'd probably ask them permission for everything.
Like, please, can I? What? It's a bit cheeky. It's really cheeky, actually. I haven't thought this much about it. But to be like, oh yeah, that free, really expensive sports car that you just gave me for nothing? Can I paint it a ridiculous colour? Very cheeky. You'd even just do it, wouldn't you?
I don't know.
Already red flags between this dynamic.
Well, he was in the band till he died, as far as I'm aware. Anyway, Paul does shit on him later on down the line pretty hard. He just shits on everyone. Fucking hates everyone. Bitter old man. Anyway, it took a while to figure out what Eric's character should be. Originally, he was going to be the Hawk. A costume was made, but it looked ridiculous, apparently. Now, have you guys seen this costume? I'm just curious.
No, I haven't.
Okay, what I'm going to do is, guys, I'm going to just send it quickly.
Well, this is...
and
that just looks badass, man. Look at that.
It looks very bad. Looks very, very,
that's
very,
not great.
very bad.
I'm glad they dropped that.
Yeah, I'm glad they've been there. I can't believe it got to the stage of actually making it. It's so bad looking. Paul said it looked like what do you say? A high school football mascot, and I don't think he's actually far off with that. It's very, very bad. Alex, what do you think?
Was he planning to wear that on stage?
Yes, that was the plan.
I mean, it just seems impractical as hell.
It is. I didn't understand what they were going for with the beak. He looks more like a chicken than a hawk.
Yeah.
Like he's orange. Hawks aren't orange, are they? They're like black. Oh, wait, are they? They're definitely not bright
like
orange.
Brown with
He looks like a chicken.
Yeah. Bizarre. Just the angry look on his face.
Yeah.
I would have actually preferred it if he'd been the chicken. He probably should have stayed with that. Still somehow looks cooler than Paul's. Anyway. Instead, because this does look very, very shit, the chicken look didn't really fly, they decided on the fox, which was apparently Eric Carr's idea. Now, what do you guys? I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think of his look, and how do you think it stacks up to the other members? How do you think it stacks up with Peter's? How do you think it slots in to the look as a whole?
I don't think it fits with the rest of the group when he's stood with the rest of the group. It doesn't quite look right. I don't know. The colours seem off, particularly the big orange, like shoulder thing. The face paint is all right. Like I guess it was an improvement on Peter's. But overall, doesn't quite fit the vibe.
Do you think it looks weird because you're so used to seeing Peter in that dynamic?
No, I just think in terms of like the colours, because the other ones like they kind of stick to a black and white sort of thing, maybe with a few little accents. I know there was that one period where they went really colourful, and it was a bit panned. I suppose this is a different era for them. I don't know. Danny, what do you think?
It sort of fits his role in the band because he's not joined as an equal member, has he?
No,
so
he's not. That's worth mentioning. Actually, he didn't get a vote. He wasn't an equal partner. So if they ever did votes, it was the remaining 3 members. So he didn't actually get a say in anything.
So it works in so much as like it looks like Kiss makeup, but it's also much less noticeable. So yeah.
No, I agree. I think they were trying to lean into the orange a lot because you know how they all had their own personal colours.
Yeah.
So like they were like, oh, we can't have green. Peter was green. What's left? Orange. Okay, we'll go with orange. Because that's been sort of like moved over from the chicken look to the fox look. Yeah. Anyway, because Unmasked bombed hard, or perceived to have bombed pretty hard, they decided to work with Bob Ezrin again. Which, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, the vibe that I get is that initially the idea was that they were going to make a very, very heavy record. And this apparently was also teased in their Kiss Army newsletter. However, Bob came on board and floated the idea of a concept album. Gene said that Ace did not want to move up to Toronto, which is where they were going to make the album, which is also where Bob Ezrin insisted on making the album, which is, from what I understand, is because he was very, 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 very heavily into cocaine at the time, which had basically consumed him to the point where he didn't want to go too far from home and his cocaine. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the album and maybe what we think about the album, but I think this album has cocaine all over it. This album,
cocaine-ridden albums.
This album reeks of cocaine. Oh yeah, but you know what you said, like not so much at some parts. That's the come down. There's bits probably on this album where you could be like, oh, he was clearly on a come down this day and was phoning it in, and there's other points where you're like, oh my god, he was gacked up to his eyeballs.
Okay, I'll agree with that. Yes.
It doesn't fit the Bob Ezrin persona very well that we had on Destroyer of this kind of school coach teacher.
Oh, that's true.
Of like whipping them all into shape. But now he's like come to Toronto and because I need my coke. It's just, it's a different angle he's coming from. It sounds like
they caught him at a very bad period in his life. I think, in essence, the idea probably was a good one. They just had no idea what had happened to him in the interim between Destroyer and this point now. In fact, I think a lot to blame on this album is due to Bob Ezrin's extensive cocaine use, but which actually brings us nicely on to how the idea was conceived. So basically, Gene had some ideas for movies and TV shows. He also, according to his autobiography, said he had some initial meetings with studio executives. I don't know how true that is, but meetings might have happened. Who knows? But anyway, Gene came up with the concept of the elder. According to Gene, a line stuck in his head they wrote in a notepad. And the line was, "When the earth was young, they were already old." The more Gene worked on the concept, the more he thought it would be a strong movie pitch. Paul describes it a lot differently. Paul describes it as a generic paint-by-numbers story about a boy who becomes the chosen one. Anyway, Bob Ezrin saw Gene's short story and said, "This is great. Let's make a record about this. Let's make a record about this short story of yours, Gene." Again, I can only imagine this was after a giant line of coke, like ingesting an inhuman amount of cocaine, that this came about. Bob said, "Let's show everyone," this is to the band, he said, to the band, "Let's show everyone how talented you are." According to Paul, showing everyone how talented you are is the best way to make an idiot out of you. Yeah. It's worth noting, by the way, that in Paul's autobiography, the way that he talks about this period in his book is with so much venom and hatred and resentment. Like, he really... not even so much embarrassed.
Do you get a feeling that's just looking back on it, like seeing how it was received, or do you get a feeling that at the time he was like unhappy with what was going on?
I think it's hard to tell. I think at the time he probably thought what they were making was. I think he describes it as like he drank the poison Kool-Aid, like he bought into the idea quite hard. And I think there's something that I'm going to bring up later on as well in the background, but I think he bought into it, and I think the most embarrassing moments on this album, and I can expand on it a bit later, are his moments, I think. There are things that he does on this album which are very, very cringy, and I think that...
Literally in my notes, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he bought into the idea really, really, really hard, and I think of anyone on this album, he attempted to deliver like progginess the most.
Yes.
And ended up looking the most ridiculous as a result. So, he... well, I'll get into some more very, very... it's not even embarrassment that he really expresses. It's more anger. Particularly at critics and peer acceptance and stuff like that. He basically said that the band had completely lost sight of what mattered to them. Peer acceptance and critical approval had never, ever, ever, ever mattered. It was the fans that mattered, and the people that, in Paul's opinion, that had vehemently disliked them had more to do with their own shit and their own issues than what kind of music they were making. Anyway, do you think that Kiss doing a concept album at this point in their career is a good move? Because what Bob Ezrin was essentially saying was, you guys need to make a bold artistic statement. You need to do something that is going to really, really shock people, that they will not see coming. Do you think that as an idea, I'm not saying how it was, realized, I'm not talking about finished product, as an idea, do you think it is a good one?
I'm open-minded to it. Yeah, why not? I think that's why not? Go for that. Do a bold artistic statement. I love bold artistic statements. And I want to hear Kiss do one.
Yeah. I agree with that, of course. But also, I think they're actually well suited towards it. Because we talked about in the past, they do have this eye for like how they present themselves, the image of the band, and even if it is very, very clunky, like we were talking about Eric Carr earlier, they care a lot about their image and like the characters that they're portraying on stage. And if they could take that into some sort of concept album, then yeah, I don't see why not.
I think you're right, Alex, in the sense that, like, you know, how image conscious that they are. But if you're going to make a concept album, you should have done it from the fucking get-go. The band's music should have been about... The concept should be about the 4 characters. The concept should be about the characters in the band. But they should have done it from the get-go. Album number 1 should have been about that. You know, kind of heavy, but the campy side of heavy. You know, like Accept or Iron Maiden or you know, or something like that. They should have done it from the get-go. Which was messed up, right? Because the concept, in a way, is right in front of him. Make it about the band.
But the Elder was old when the Earth was young.
Anyway, yeah, that it was. By the way, we will get into the actual plot of this album.
Please do. Fucking enlighten me.
In a bit, but yeah.
Sorry, we're getting too ahead.
We're getting too ahead, but yeah, we'll get to the actual plot of what the fuck this album is actually about. Anyway, Ace hated the idea and didn't go up to Toronto. Bob corroborates this, by the way. He says that Ace was not happy. However, Paul says that even if they had done exactly what Ace had wanted, he would still be too wasted to play at this point. He was really fucked up. Ace said a lot of his solos he FedExed in. He FedExed up there. Apparently, all his solos on this album were done via that process. Bob had also made it very, very clear to him that he didn't like any of the shit that he was coming up with, and a lot of it was not going to be used. He also didn't like some of the solos that had been FedExed up, and he didn't use it. To be honest with you, I don't actually know when Ace plays on this album. I mean, there's bits where I'm like, okay, that sounds like Ace. That's a dead ringer for Ace. But there are certain points where I'm like, I actually don't know how much of it is him and how much of it is either a session player or Paul. I know one specific song is definitely Paul playing lead, but that's about it. I haven't got a clue. Paul, Gene, and Eric moved to Toronto to work on the album. Bob's cocaine use was becoming that gargantuan that he didn't actually show up either. He was slamming cocaine 24/7. He was a lot more absent than he was on Destroyer. Instead of turning up, he would send notes to the studio by messenger after Kiss had sent cassettes to his house. They got so far behind in the production process that Paul and Gene worked at the same time in 2 separate studios. They had no idea what the other one was doing and could not speak to Bob because he was too much out of his mind on cocaine to come to the phone. Do you get that off listening to this album, do you think?
Not so much, because there's definitely a few moments here where I felt as though there was more collaboration than we've seen in previous albums. There are some songs where we have Gene and Paul singing on the same track.
That's
which
true.
is actually quite rare.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know it is. Yeah.
So in terms of looking at it and being like, oh well, clearly they're like, you know, it's all really messy. I didn't really get that feeling at all. I'm still amazed at everything what you tell me about Bob Ezrin. Like, if it's really this chaotic, I'm amazed that this got done and that the band went through with all of this.
I think it's just about deadlines.
I know, like it's night and day. It's complete night and day.
Like, I think it was just studio pressure. Like, we need to get a record out, because I think otherwise, they should have pulled the plug. But I think pre-digital age, people were a bit less careful about what they put out there. The idea of tarnishing a legacy was less of a thing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well that they probably had so much faith
Yeah.
in Bob Ezrin because of how he delivered on Destroyer that they were like, it will pull out. It will
all come
it'll
together.
Work. You
Yeah.
just have to have faith. Exactly. Even Eric Carr had some of his drums taken out, and a session player came in. Paul described the experience as Paul described the entire recording experience and the concepts and everything as the little Stonehenge coming down in This Is Spinal Tap. I think that is the smartest, most astute observation he has ever made. I think that is exactly what this album is.
I wonder if
Completely.
I read that ages ago and it's kept in my mind, because on one of the songs especially, I'm like, I put in my notes, this is Spinal Tap. This just sounds like Spinal Tap. Yeah.
Oh, totally. There's actually one point in this album, Danny. I'm giving away one of my notes at the minute, but I said, like, if you had told me that this was from Spinal Tap, but it was like, oh, they're talking about their weird album that they made, and they play like a clip of it in a video, I'd be like, 100%. 100%. Yeah. They finally finished the album, despite all these setbacks. And apparently, at the time, Bob Ezrin said he thought it was a masterpiece. Whenever Paul... See, this is what makes me believe that actually they did think it was really good, because apparently, whenever Paul would play the album in his flat for friends, he would insist on silence to respect its greatness. That must have been agonizing. Can you imagine? Could you imagine the awkwardness must have been off the chain? I mean, you've heard this album as well. From track one, like when the fanfare kicks in, you'd just be like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I get out of this? How do I leave? It's like, oh yeah, I've got to... Yeah, it's getting a bit late, Paul. I think I need to get off. It's like, shh.
Oh, I wish we could get accounts of what people thought at the time or what people said. Oh,
could you imagine? Anyway, according to Paul, the reaction at the end of the listening party for the record label was like the audience in The Producers when they heard Springtime for Hitler. The record label fucking hated it. It was originally sequenced in a way that told a story, but that meant you didn't get to anything that even sounded remotely like a rock song for a very, very long time. So they changed the order. A management company, an associate management company that previously worked with Kiss and been on other Kiss records, wanted their names taken off it. They hated it that much. There was also, at this point in their career, an image change. Everyone had short hair. Gene had a braid. Yes. Have you seen this look? Do you like it? I quite like it. I think it's actually pretty good.
Oh, it's too in the middle for me. It's too, like, you can tell they're heading towards the 80s, but it's not quite there yet. I suppose everyone was like this at the time, but like the big purple hairband that Paul is wearing is just too much for me.
I think they look more like new wavy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think one new kind of gothy new wavy vibe rather than like, prog. But then how do you make... I mean, I say how do you make that look prog? I mean, think of like bands like Crimson Glory do it and stuff like that. I don't think it would have been that much of a stretch. Danny, what do you think?
Well, I saw one of you shared a like TV performance that they did. And they're kind of more... They look more like rockers. It's darker. There's more, studded leather than there was before, and that suits them. I think they can pull that off. That's very, they fit among their peers when they do that, and it works with the makeup. I thought, but you say New Wave's interesting, Alexei, because that makes me think. Did you guys see the Japanese front cover, or was it a front cover to the single? Maybe. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And like
I've
Ace is like doing a laser
terrible.
beam or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look different.
Yeah, it's very, very bad. But the thing is, though, because the whole thing is to woo the critics, essentially, isn't it? They want to be like respected, you know. You can't look like that and say, no, we're completely serious artists now with no sense of fun. We're going to do this very, very po-faced now. You just can't. Like, if the attempt is to really get peer acceptance and, like, have the critics go, like, oh, we were wrong about Kiss. This is their fucking Kid A. This is their white pony. Like, you can't look like that. You know, and have people just go, this is... I mean, you can get respect for looking like that and being like, we're going to be really campy and ridiculous and silly, but make really, really, like, intense, frenetic, like, fun music. But you can't just be like, oh, no, we're serious artists now. It just doesn't fly. I don't know what you guys think.
I'd love to see them succeed.
Yeah, this whole thing is a mess in terms of like messaging and imagery and stuff, and how they presented themselves on the stage as well. What's going on? It doesn't make sense. You're right, Alexei.
Yeah, and it's like their attempts like, oh, we're going to prove that we're serious. We'll cut our hair. It's just like embarrassing. It's like, is that it? You know. Anyway, according to Paul, just before the album was going to be released, he saw a poster for it in a record shop. He said he had a panic attack. In quotations, he said, "What have we done?" The album didn't even go... Yeah, that's what he said.
What does it mean? Like, was it the poster of the front cover? What was so shocking about it?
The poster at the front. So he went into a record shop. He could see the poster of the album cover, and just the album, you know, on for sale. You know, Kiss, The Elder, blah blah blah. Well, it would have been not just the album cover. I assume it would have had some details on it, like, you know, or a concept album from Kiss, whatever, Kiss's new chapter, whatever. You know what I mean. And he looked in. He said he had a panic attack and thought, "Oh my God, what have we done?" I think he's saying that retrospectively. I think at the time he completely bought into it.
If this album was loved by everyone, you would not hear any of these doubts. It would be, we knew we made a masterpiece, and we did. It's just, he's just responding to the critics.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think he's horribly embarrassed by it, and I think it affected him. It didn't even go gold. They couldn't tour it because it sold so badly. And instead, they focused on TV and videos, TV appearances and videos. They did do a lot. I've seen a few of them, and they're just embarrassing, like really, really dire. Some of them, some of the stuff that they did were really, really cheap. You know, daytime television stuff. Nothing of note, nothing famous. They did an appearance on the Eurovision Song Contest, where they mimed "I," which Ace was. It was only as a free piece as well. Ace was way too fucked to go. So they didn't. They mimed it as a free piece. Yeah, it's really, really embarrassing. It bombed very, 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 very bad. At the time, it actually got okay reviews. However, quite quickly, it sort of got regarded as one of the worst albums ever made, including by members of the band. It does have some defenders. But it's mostly just like rock and guitar magazines that kind of say, oh, no, this is underrated. This is an underrated gem. And he does some people like, I can't remember his name. I had it written down as well. The guitarist, the lead singer of Opeth, he did a What's in My Bag with Amoeba, and he had this record in there. He said it was great. Mike Portnoy talked about this album, thought it was very, very great. It does have some champions, but I think, you know, popular opinion.
I totally believe that if you were 9 years old, and this was the first kind of album that you heard like this, that you would find it mind-blowing in a sense.
Oh, no, not at 9.
So people of that sort of age.
Not at 9. I think at 9 you'd find it unbelievably boring. I mean, you find it so dull. In an interview with Eddie Trunk, Bob Ezrin revealed his thoughts on the record. And he basically said that for years he hated it and they shouldn't have done it. They should have been shot before they made it. However, it was played for him by some authors of a book about the Elder, which I don't know ever came out. I was trying to look for it and I couldn't find it. And he was surprised at how good he thought some of it actually was. he also said that you never know how you feel about something that you've made till there is space between you and the product, which I think is very, very true, actually. I think he made a really good point with that. However, this book that he did this interview with, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, caused him and Paul to fall out to the point where they don't actually speak anymore. He said that of the record that he felt worse for Paul on that album. He said that Paul was required to be almost operatic and it just didn't suit him, and said that that Paul basically made up for the most cringiest moments on the album because he was trying to do that. Like I said before, I think that's completely right. I do sort of sympathise a bit with Paul because I don't think he was as on board as the other two, and he tried really hard and he tried to deliver. But also, I'm not being funny, but Paul, what, you can dish it out, but you can't take it. He shits on literally everyone. Literally fucking everyone. As soon as someone else goes, oh, yeah, I felt bad for Paul on that one because he was trying to be something that he wasn't. Paul's great, but it didn't fly. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to speak to him ever again. He's unbelievably precious and sensitive, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, I agree. Paul's always been like that. We've been quoting him from the start, and he never comes across well. It's his autobiography. He gets to come across however he wants. And it's always bitter. It's always how shit everyone else is. And look, he gets a lot of praise from us.
I know.
He gets a lot of praise because he can sing and he can write a tune, especially compared to the other members of the band. But yeah, in interviews, he's fucking insufferable.
Yeah. He really is. And also, he never says as well of this, like, I was trying to be something that I wasn't, and it didn't work. And I ended up looking, like he said that we ended up looking kind of foolish, but it's always we. And I was just like, well, you know, you could have said, like, you know, oh, I messed up. You know, it wasn't really me. Like, he spends all this time shitting on anyone else, but as soon as somebody else goes, like, you know, oh yeah, it wasn't great for him. He just completely abandons them. And he is ridiculous on this album. He's really ridiculous on this album at points, like really silly. And the fact that he can't, you know, at least have the humility to say, oh yeah, Bob's right. That was totally right on my part. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, maybe he really does. No, but he said it's bad. It just has to be him to say it, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, he says it's bad, but he doesn't say his performance is bad. He's just like, the songs aren't good. His songs, he says the songs weren't good, and we were going down a path we shouldn't have gone down. He doesn't say, I don't sound good on that album. I'm not proud of my work on it.
Well, I don't know.
You know, which he should do.
Yeah, they took a swing on something and, you know, he missed. Like, that's it. Like, of all the albums, all the projects they've done, like, this is the one where it's so clear that it just didn't work.
Yeah,
Yeah, Macy, he wouldn't do that.
No. Anyway, this is seen as one of the biggest examples of a band kind of losing a plot that has ever been released. And you know what? I was going to ask you just briefly if you could sort of answer, do you agree with that? And my opinion is that there are certainly moments where I'm like, oh God, they've completely got off the deep end. But not necessarily as a whole. And that's what I'll give. What do you guys think?
So I wouldn't say they lost the plot as much. Or maybe they lost sight, kind of what you were saying earlier, Alexei. They lost sight of what made them big, what they were good at as well, in terms of like connecting with audiences, creating songs that were simple, kind of to the point, that were made for a live performance. And their egos just got clearly in the way with some of these songs. Like, the fact that they believed that they could the fact that they believed they had something here in terms of a story to tell or an idea, and and then in the way they tried to flesh it out, their ego totally got in the way. There must have been so many yes men around them.
No, absolutely.
Like if that's losing the plot, then yes,
I
they
think
lost the plot. That's how I see it.
The way we're talking about this now, the way you always have to talk about Kiss, this exemplifies how uninspired their writing process is. Because how often it's so common to hear other musicians talk about how I just wrote it that way. It just came to me, the muse, and the genre is always like, well, that's just how it came out. I just make the music I like. But with Kiss, it's never that. It's all completely planned. It's boardrooms.
No.
It's like you said before, Alexei. It's meeting quotas. It's how do we chase the market and try and maximize profits. It really feels that way with Kiss.
This is
it's somebody else coming in and fishing them of ideas.
Exactly.
Sort of
yeah, this is definitely the cart before the horse.
Yeah, so we could say losing 100%. The plot, but it's more losing the target audience.
I know. I actually read somewhere that they came up with the concept. They already had some of the music and stuff like that, and they just rewrote them so it would fit. And I'm like, it's not really. I don't know. It's not really how you. I'd imagine how you do. It's like what you were saying, Danny. Like, you didn't grow organically. They weren't like writing songs and being like, you know what, this kind of all fits a certain theme. Maybe we can turn it into some sort of concept album, and then it sort of breeds on from there. They were literally kind of retro fixing things to be like, this is what it is. This is I think one of my big criticisms is how disingenuous and insincere this album is.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Anyway, the cover. This is the first one without any of the band. I think it looks kind of heavy. It's not very Kiss at all. It does look like a stock new wave of British heavy metal album cover, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think if you changed Kiss for Saxon, you just
that's exactly who I thought of too.
At all, it
Saxon.
Would just yeah. You just there's no identity to it whatsoever, which is weird because they're like, I think with the concept, you probably could have done more, whatever the fucking plot is. I know the vague plot sort of thing, but I think there's probably more you could do with it. It's very basic. It lacks an identity, which is really critical because, considering the fact that they're trying to make a bold artistic statement, you would have something with more of an identity that does, make more of a statement. However, you could maybe possibly make the argument that not having them on the front cover is the statement. That is the artistic statement. Because that has been so...
definitely.
Yeah, that has been so synonymous with who that they are. But by simply not having them there, that is the artistic statement. However, the image that they've got, again, change it to Accept, change it to Saxon, change it to fucking Tigers of Pang Tang, change it to Crocus, and it would just look exactly... It would just read exactly the same. It just completely lacks any sort of identity. It's a very, very nice door. Yeah. Well done. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, you hit it. I think you're getting it right, Alexei. I think it's fine. It's a nice door. Like, just taking it as that, it's a door, and it's a nice door. It has got a rose on it. I'm just realizing that now, which is kind of, in line with the concept.
Yeah, it was the order of the rose, right? That's where the orders are, I think.
For how difficult it is to understand what the fuck this album is about by just listening to it, I would hope for a bit more help with that. Something. Because this is just a door. We can't even see the whole door. We're seeing a section of a door.
No,
it's really... it's too intimate. No, I'm riffing. I don't know if this is right. It's fine. It's just funny that they tried to do something different. It's still got the fucking goofy Kiss logo in the top left corner. I also think...
Yeah, I know. It's like, we're going to make a really big artistic statement. Oh, what could you... Oh, yeah, a door.
I also think people... And I guess this isn't just the cover, it's the name as well. Like, I would have thought, this is a film. It's a film that's coming out, I guess. And this is a shot from the film, or a poster from the movie.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you think of this front cover?
I agree. The door is very nice. It's a very clean door.
Beautiful.
For a fancy world.
Well crafted.
The rose, very nice. And the hand, a very clean, a very well manicured hand as well. which I assume is the boy. Maybe it's the elder. Who knows?
To
me, this
originally it was meant to be Paul's hand. If you're curious, he got it trapped in a window. Apparently, a window came down on his hand and it got all bruised, so he couldn't do it. So they got a hand model instead.
A bruised hand would have been a really nice choice. If it was like a messed up hand, grabbing for it, you'd be like, "Ooh, what's going on there?"
Yeah.
But no, this is just a very good, well manicured hand. This album fits the album really well in terms of it's very much like reaching for something, going for something, but it's so nothingy that in terms of like what it's actually saying.
Yeah.
Like there's no detail to it. It's just like a vague facsimile of this sort of thing. And it's weird that they went for, I don't know if you're going to mention this, Alexei, but the whole thing of like The Elder as being a film and creating a soundtrack for the film.
Yes, that's true.
This is before the time that like soundtracks were like really popular to buy. I know in like going to the 80s and then definitely in the 90s, like film soundtracks were like became a big thing. So a very strange move. I'm not sure if you have anything on that.
Well, yeah, the plan was to make it into a film or a TV series. In fact, you've just drawn my attention to something, just how fucking mad it is to make a soundtrack, essentially a soundtrack. That's why it's called Music from the Elder, to make a soundtrack before a film has even been like written or released. This must be the first time in history ever that someone has created essentially the soundtrack to a film that does not exist. Because the plan was to like make it into a film or a TV series. That is just fucking bonkers.
Do you know how a few albums ago Gene had the idea of writing a Beatles-esque song and then being like, Paul and John will join in on this? I feel as though this is a very similar sort of move in the sense that, well, we're just going to make the music first, and then, the movie, they'll do the movie for us, sort of thing. Just a level of arrogance and confidence
from the Elder.
Guys,
yeah, it's outstanding. Right, let's go track one. Now we're going to be going through these tracks in the order they were initially intended, which I think is fair because you want to give them the best.
This is the re-release,
the best stab.
Yeah.
So that's the remaster, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So because you got to say, okay, they made a product, they got a bit fucked on the track listing. Do you know what I mean? You got to give them a
critiquing the management.
First track. Yeah, exactly. So track one is Fanfare. So this is an fucking anyway. This is an intro track. So essentially, what we get is this kind of like very, very lush orchestration and some kind of weird monk chants. Now, this to me highlights one of the even though it's not very long. This is not very long. This little intro thing, but to me, it highlights one of the biggest issues with this album, and that is just how fucking dated it sounds. This sounds like something that would be off like an early 70s prog album, like something by Gentle Giant or Yes. It's 1980. Like at this point, Rush had released Permanent Waves, like Genesis had released Duke. Like all these guys whose sound essentially is trying to be emulated on this are starting to embrace like new wave and stuff like that. They've left this sound like way, way, way behind. Like it just goes to show just how fucking out of touch they must have been at this point. Like I do think you can generalize this criticism to a lot of the album, at least the first half, which is, where a lot of the stabs at being quite progressive happen. Like their stab at prog is so dated. It's such a dated take on prog for this time, for 1980. Like, let's make a big artistic statement. Okay, we're going to go for some kind of like early 70s prog stuff. It's just baffling to me. And to be honest with you, I actually sympathize a lot with the record executives on this one. If they had pressed play and this is the first thing that came out, I just would have paused. They went, no, wait. Is that the first? Is it all going to be like this?
It's not.
Is it all like this? Or at least a lot of it? you know, I'd just be like, because I'd be like, no. Like, we're not starting with this. Go back, get rid of it. There's just no way. There's no way. Anyway, Danny, what do you think?
I mean, you said it, man. I love how old this sounds. It sounds so old. And so far, they're sticking true to always staying 10, 15 years behind the times. They've just moved on to prog.
Yeah.
It sounds legit. Yeah. And in fact, just thinking now, it's probably one of the more successful attempts at emulating that sound. This is the only one I'd believe if you lied to me and was like, this is a Griffin song from 1971. I'd be like, okay, yeah, this sounds like an interlude on a, like you said, Alexei, a Gentle Giant album or something. The only other thing I wrote was, it's so funny to me that on the original release, this was track 2. That you get the opener and then this. So, Alex, what do you think?
I agree with both of you in the sense that, yes, it sounds unbelievably dated.
So old.
From the get-go.
So
But I with this, I try to put my mind into that time, because who knows, maybe in 1981 or whenever, they weren't really seeing it as data at that time. And so I'm trying to look at it as they're creating a film here, they're creating a story. And like Alexei is you hit play and this starts. And they've just gone fantasy. An old time. It's just the most generic, vague sort of idea of olden times. Yeah. There's no details here. And again, it's amazing this is coming from Bob Ezrin, where if you go back to Destroyer, he tried to do similar Foley. I'm sure, right?
Foley sounds,
setting in a time and place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did a much better job there of in terms of sound effects and putting you in somewhere than this. So already quite the start. And this, I did laugh a lot when I first heard this. It is a hell of an intro.
Yeah, it's very, very silly. Anyway, Just a Boy. Danny, what do you think?
I started laughing quite quickly. I just put ha 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 at the start.
I did. I did as well.
Yeah,
and
same.
then,
yeah.
And then I put I am fucking hooked. He is too young to be sailing. That's what he keeps saying in the lyrics. I am just a boy who is too young to be sailing. I put, they're certainly nailing the cadences. They're getting the chord changes right to sound proggy of that era. This sort of classical sounding, almost Baroque cadences.
When you mean that era, you mean 1971, though, right?
Oh yeah. I don't mean
you don't mean you don't mean prog of this time.
Oh
of
goodness no,
because they
no
completely moved on at that point. Yeah. I agree.
But I don't like that. I think that just because they're getting the sound right, it's really bad chord changes that they're doing. I do like some of the ones that do it back in the day. I just think I'm struggling as a critic to describe it. It's just there's these almost good bits melodically and harmonically that are just ruined by these try-hard chord changes. It's not complex. It's not complicated at all. It's just bad to me. I just don't like the sound of them. There's some nice guitar harmonies.
They're incredibly forced, I think.
Yeah, there's some nice guitar harmonies in the solo. I don't know if it's A's. Probably not if there's harmonies. His voice is just funny in this one. I'm sorry, Paul. It's just really funny.
Is. And I'm just a boy. And he's trying to sound like a child. Too young to be I think he's 30 years old at this point. He's my age at this point. I'm just a boy.
And I really wish this was better. That's what I put. I really wish that because they're doing a style of music that I like a lot of. And I like the pretentiousness and the silliness and the over-the-topness of all that old stuff. But
yeah,
and
listen, I love this era that they're trying to do of prog, and it's something I'll get into a little
Me
bit
too,
more in
yeah.
a bit. This version of it, though, that they're trying to do, the sort of warbly, dramatic, let's set the scene kind of
cinematic
point, is cinematic thing. That's the part of it that I don't get on with so much. If I think about the prog bands I really like Egg and Yes and, Gentle Giant or Genesis or something like that, a lot of these sections that is this song would be a section in one of their songs, bookended by some like really frenetic, insane musicianship.
Oh, you're getting on.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to get onto that stuff. Like, yeah, absolutely. That type of thing. I will.
And it's completely gone.
Yeah.
And you're just left with the boring, like, let's say something that maybe would be like, something that would maybe be like a minute or something like that in one of those songs. It's the entirety of this. Like it's like they listened to some of those albums and just completely missed the point of what made them good. Or didn't have the musicianship to do it.
And I even liked, maybe more than you, Alexei, some of the boring, folky, ballady, proggy stuff. But again, the embarrassingness of the performance aside, it's just, it makes me feel like a bad music critic or analyzer, because I just don't like the chord changes. I don't like the melody. I don't like, outside of how funny and embarrassing it is. This is not a sound that I like. Nothing about it. Alex, what do you think?
I think it's really interesting that you guys are talking a lot about the sort of proggy influence all this, which there definitely was. They might have been aiming for prog, but they're going definitely more amateur musical theatre with all of this.
Yeah, that sounds like
and like this song in particular, in the way the lyrics are, and it's just so in your face. And this is what is happening. There's no sort of interesting, beautiful descriptions or metaphors or anything. It's just, I am a boy. I am special. Everyone is looking at me. Yeah. I will go. And it's actually, as it was going with the album, this is one of the tracks I liked the most because it's very short to the point and it is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it hits all these unbelievable cliches that Kiss are known to do, but the fact they just packed so many into this quite short song is really amazing. Guitar solo I thought is fine. It sounds quite good. The drums sound good on this one here.
Yeah.
But I just got to know, what does this boy have?
Yeah. The thing is,
this boy has something special, guys.
The thing is, Alex, you made a good point about the on the nose cliches that are in this, and despite those on the nose cliches, you still get lost. I still don't really know what this is set up. I know there's a boy.
Yeah,
that's it. I know there's just a boy that's on a boat.
Yeah,
I still get lost.
Too young to be sailing.
It's too young to be sailing. Like, even with those on the nose cliches, I'm still lost. I still don't really understand what's happening. Anyway, I think this is dated, very dated. Again, I'm going to say it again. The record executive, if I was a record executive and I was listening to this, as soon as Paul starts singing, I would just pause it, despite their insistence of listening to it in silence, and I would pause it and I would just be like, is it all going to be like this? Is it all like this? Like, is this the thing? And if they said yes, I'd be like, well, you need to go back. It's not happening. I'm sorry. It's just not happening.
I will say,
you've made a mistake.
Yeah. Before we move on, and we were shitting on Paul earlier, which, rightly deserved. But it is tracks like this that I do admire how much of I'm not sure if professional is the right term, but he really goes for it when he's given something. And I think this doesn't work out at all, but he's trying his goddamn best.
He's committed. He's definitely
and somebody
committed.
should have gone and said, no, this isn't it.
No,
but
they would have been, it's not it. Like, yeah. Anyway, the music, Paul does not suit this style at all. Like I said, I completely agree with Bob Ezrin. It's so out of his real wheelhouse, it's hilarious. I do feel for him in a sense, because obviously he wasn't steering the ship necessarily, and he definitely, I think, gets the memo on this album, for better or worse, than Gene does. I feel like he just tried quite hard to emulate that style, but it doesn't work. Like, if you listen to someone like John Anderson or Geddy Lee or Peter Gabriel, they do sing in a much higher melodramatic register. Yeah. But when he does it does really sound quite bad. And like I said, that kind of warbly, setting the scene, kind of, dramatic bit in a prog song, like, is the part of it I don't really like that much. I think in general, like I said, the sort of freneticism, the weird time signatures, the towering musicianship, which makes a lot of prog records really, really great, is completely missing from this album. That could have saved it. I think the song is tremendously silly and quite dull. Anyway, Odyssey. Paul, again, I think sounds very, very silly. This one has oddly grown on me, and I don't really understand how or why it's done that. Like, there's no sincerity in this.
Yep.
They're putting on this intellectual shit, and no one is buying it whatsoever. I do think musically it is sort of impressive. Like, there's that bit where it's like, there's a child in a rainbow looking at a rain. That bit, the like middle eight bit, that is quite nice. Yeah. That is quite nice. The lyrics are just gibberish, though. Like, if you actually listen to the lyrics, they are like complete nonsense. Like Red Hot Chili Peppers, yes, like levels of complete nonsense. Like, and I also do think, in terms of the plot, this is just like orchestrated plot. This is the plot with an orchestra. It's very like weighty. To me, this just sounds incredibly silly, and I think that's probably why I like it a little. Like I was saying before, this is the one that I said that if you had told me this is Spinal Tap and they're referring to an experimental album they made, like, I wouldn't think twice. I think this is the peak of that kind of hard rock experimentation, sort of posturing. It's crazy because listening to this all, it would take one outside voice that wasn't in the band to come in, because they worked pretty much in secrecy making this album. Like, no one came in, no one from the label, no one, not a friend, no one came in to listen to this as they were making it. It would take one person to come in and listen to this and be like, no, this is chaos. You have to stop. You have to stop. It would take one person from outside of the people working on it to just come in and say, like, listen to this and go, this is beguiling. This is just ridiculous. You cannot be serious. Like, you have to stop this. This is so not you. You're going down a dangerous path right now, and you have to stop. Anyway, Alex, what do you think?
Yes, unbelievably camp. Like, I really was shocked when I first heard this. It's so camp, which I do like from Paul, I'll be honest. I do like when he does it. But the voice he puts on here, I don't know, it's like this... Okay, maybe as we go through this, I might give, like, what I think is happening in the story. So far on the first track, we had...
I'm glad you are, actually.
There's a boy...
Because I genuinely...
I'll try my best.
I'm lost at this point, yeah, tell me.
Okay. What I've got in my head here, so the first track, or After Fanfare, there's a boy, and, he's too young to be sailing, but people are looking at him. He's got to help lead the way. And this track, because this one's a lot more like, come on now, let's get on, and words of stallions and going to some enchanted place or whatever. To me, this is like a captain or like somebody on the ship, like showing him the way, being like, "Don't worry, boy, you can do it." That's the kind of feeling I get from this, and especially with the voice that Paul puts on. Just sort of like, and here we are, this enchanted place. It's so ridiculous. It's so over the top.
Yeah, it's very bad.
Yeah, this is so bizarre. I'm just amazed in this, how with tracks like this, they've thrown everything away from what is Kiss. Like, this track, there is nothing Kiss about it.
Yeah.
Which is yeah, it is bold.
It's more.
It makes it quite hard to talk about.
It's more confusing, I think. I mean, the real criticism is just like you said, Paul trying to sound stoic and heroic. It just sounds. It's pathetic. It sounds so silly.
Yeah, I wrote that, like, I kind of admire that in a way. It's good for Kiss in having all this instrumentation used and trying to do the sound. However, it's terrible for prog/musical theatre standards. Like, it's just so bare bones and nothing. What do you, Danny?
I really thought I'd be enjoying the album more at this point. I thought, and I know it's famously panned, but you come at that with a kind of, I bet it's not that bad. And anyway, it's a concept, apparently proggish album, and man, this, I think I like it less than you guys. I was going to float the bid on this one. I think this is a really low moment. I think it is pompous.
Oh no, I get
meandering.
It's ridiculous.
So funny,
it's ridiculous,
So
but
it
I
is.
just think it's the second funniest song on the album.
Right, I hope we agree on the funniest,
Definitely. I
man,
don't
because
think it's
that's
the
coming
funniest.
up and it's fucking hilarious. But to me,
No, we will. We will. I think we're on the same page. I definitely think we're on the same page. It's the second funniest song. I'm just more bewildered by it. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Just a Boy was funnier than this. This is just so, like I said, pompous, meandering, and seemingly arbitrary chord changes. You've got to earn it, man. It's got to come from something, whether it's inspiration or expertise or talent. You can't. It's so arrogant for them to make this.
Yeah,
and
it is times like this when you're listening to it where you do understand, actually, when people say like, oh my god, they really went somewhere else, that you might think they're like, oh, did they, like, I bet it's overblown, but then you do listen to like this and go like, oh god, no, they really did. They really went off the deep end on this.
Although it has a nice drum sound, the production overall is very bad. It sounds muddy. It sounds underwhelming.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Completely at odds with the sound that I think they're going for, with also a very overpopulated arrangement. It's just full of shit. It's orchestras and crap that you can't hear what's going on.
There's a moment where some like proggy, like whirry synths come in, and it sounds terrible.
Yes.
Like,
is that the bit? It sounds like that bit in "I Want It All" by Queen, where it's like.
Yeah.
I actually put that in my conclusion that their attempt at prog is basically budget Queen. That's the closest they can get.
I think so.
Not on this
yeah,
track.
I think
Later,
it's very Queen.
other
I think I got
points.
Queen on this.
The way the first line is "from a far off galaxy." That was funny. The way he said, like you said, Alec, enchanted place. I tried to spell it. The way he says enchanted place is so funny. I just put, what the fuck was that? This is really bad. And like I say, it seems it's not been worthy between the three of us, so I'll retract that. But it is so arrogant.
I don't think it is.
Alex, what do you think?
I just find.
Maybe
Okay,
we'll come back to it.
I just find it more confusing than bad, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of like, well, what the fuck was that? What were you thinking? Do you know what I mean? I actually feel kind of bad for them in a sense. I don't know. I don't know.
A real sense of secondhand embarrassment occurs in this album.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And I just think that like you come across more stupid with this than you did with
fucking
living in sin at the
cultured.
Holiday Inn. Maybe I wouldn't go
Not
that
that
far
far.
actually.
But
like, okay, what's the really dumb, like ladies' room service? Something that's really just dumb and boneheady and stuff like that. You come across way more stupid with this. 100%.
it's just.
Anyway,
let's go.
next track. Only You. This is like the first sort of rock song. On this album, I am Alex, what do you think?
Okay. So we have Gene. Okay. In the story, so now that somebody's helping along this boy, going to wherever they want them to go. And there's somebody else who's come to the boy and just telling him how special he is. And calling him a man-child, which has aged in a really funny way.
It's so funny. Keep saying man-child.
Was that like a popular
I don't know.
term to use for someone? Like,
I haven't
it
got
Makes me think Chris Chan's like the main character.
It's an insult.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just like, oh, you man-child. Like, it means you're really immature. It's like the opposite of what he wants.
Oh, man. Yeah, so we have Gene, and on Unmasked we were giving Gene faint praise for
Naked City.
I can't remember the name of the song. Naked City, thank you. In terms of like his sort of singing, improving, and finding a decent sort of lane for himself. He's using that same voice on this album, but still with very little charisma, and really kind of struggling to get any sort of like emotion or attitude from him. And just like this song, the verses are very dull, and again, like really not very much to grab a hold to. But the chorus is ridiculous. I don't know why they chose this to be the chorus. Like, it needs so much more.
Give us a secret. That bit.
Yeah, it's just so muffled and bizarre.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I do like that Paul joins in on this song. I think Kiss could do more of that, sort of get bit more sort of dynamic contrast in their songs.
Yeah.
However, the sound quality of Paul's vocals is awful. Did you get that as well? Like, it sounds like the equivalent of when like artists today record on their phone, like drafts and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
His voice sounds terrible on this one. And I'm not sure on the lyrics. Sid, are you picking up that Paul is meant to be like the surrogate for the boy? If you know what I mean, like when he is singing.
Alex, I'm amazed how well you've done.
Oh, I didn't think.
I get the feeling.
I didn't think about that. Maybe.
I think that's what it is, because I think there's another moment later on, where he sings and he's sort of like the narrative time switches, and also when he comes in, we also get the callback to "I'm just a boy."
Yeah. Who's Ace meant to be then? Because I guess if Gene's like the like Merlin Gandalf character in this, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi character. In this, he's called Morpheus.
That's also funny.
Yeah. So, like before the Matrix, long before the Matrix, Wachowski's ripped him off. $signs, Gene. Everything you've tried to patent, should have patented that. Anyway,
sorry, one last.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh god, yes. I was going to say one last thing about the song, because really it is a mess, and like a lot of songs, it's too long. But what Danny was saying with the previous song, this one has so many different sections and chord changes and all this stuff going on, and none of it works together. No. It's such a long song. It's so boring. It doesn't go anywhere.
Really boring.
Despite making all these shifts.
I know, it's so boring.
Especially towards the end.
You know why I think that is? I think all the sections they cycle through sound like either a breakdown or a middle eight. They all sound like the part of a song where it would exhale or bring things down or kind of like transition from one bit to another, not necessarily be like a whole section in their own right. And there's no I'm just like, put a solo in, put a fucking guitar solo in, bring up the tempo, something. If you're gonna have lots of sections in, again, make it frenetic and stuff. But they just play it at such a trepidatious tempo. It's ridiculous. So I think with this one, I think the riff sounds like Naked City. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but we're just way less fire and way more plot. Again, like I said, it's very, very boring. Again, loads of sections. They all, a lot of the riffs sound like Rush, but a lot slower and played with no energy whatsoever. I mean, the only bit that kind of piqued my interest was the give us the secrets, but it wasn't like, as in, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I was kind of like, what the fuck was that? What was the point in that? Like, there's a lot of stuff on this where you're like, oh, that's just kind of weird for the sake of being weird. There's not really much reason why else you put that in. And that is one of those moments, I think. The give us the secrets. Well, I think, obviously, you're trying to experiment or whatever, but it's just weird for the sake of weird. It doesn't really hold, like, a purpose. Danny, what do you think?
I've always been open to Kiss experimenting. When I say experimenting, I mean doing things that aren't hard rock. You know, all the way back at Beth, I was like, I'm open to that. I'm not a hard rock purist with Kiss. But
yeah, exactly.
when this riff opened, in comparison to the rest of the album, I was like, yeah, please, actually, give me a let's rock it up while going pretentious at least, because I need something, and it's a riff. I just was happy to hear that, and then I got annoyed because I kind of forgot about Gene, and he just comes on. You're like, oh god, and he's here too. We're so fucking like. I put riff starved, but it's like catchy tune starved. That actually, yeah, give me the secret section, Alexei. It's like one of the better moments on the album so far, and that's telling. Like, they're really trying to squeeze ideas out here, and because that bit's, I don't know what it is. It's like a sort of riffy bit, isn't it? And so it's really better than a lot of what we've had so far. And there's really terrible riffage at the Only You bit towards the end. They got embarrassing Gene vocals. Really bad, that bit. Very on brand. I quoted, "You are the man-child, you are the light, and you are the way." I like that. That's great. Just utterly directionless song. Like, you guys have already said it. It's just no cohesiveness, randomness, random
really
crap, and
no one lazy as well, because
lazy,
yeah, it's really lazy. Like, considering that, like, the previous two tracks had so much shit thrown at them. You know, when I was talking about when you can tell Bob Ezrin is on a come down, I feel like this is a come down song. I feel like something like, the previous shot, like Odyssey, he was gacked up to his eyeballs. Then this one, he was just like, oh, fuck it, whatever. Yeah, just stick that in, it'll be fine.
Danny was saying that maybe the previous track should be up for the Kiss bin. I think this one should be considered as well.
What, only
overall? This is
only you.
Yeah, I think it should be considered for the Kiss bin.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll put them both down and we can talk about it at the end. I don't know. I think this is just more like dull, just kind of dull, and boring. I don't think it's like offensive. Yeah,
there's more to come, so we can talk about it at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the next track. Under the Rose. Eric Carr co-wrote this one, by the way. If you're curious. I have very similar feelings towards this as Odyssey. When the massive chorus came in, I just laughed. I laughed so hard when that came in. I just marvel at how these men could follow such an obviously bad idea through to the end. I find it just fascinating. And I think this is a really good example of that. Like, musically, they obviously tried very hard, but again, this is so silly and so dull and very, 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 very pompous. But again, it made me smile a lot. I thought this was so ridiculous, this song, and pompous. I do think the guitar solo is okay. If it's Ace, it's a good job, but overall it's just guys, stop. What are you doing? Guys, stop. This is enough now. Okay, let's wheel it back. Like, how ridiculous this sounds, right? This sounds so silly. Danny, what do you think?
They have such a strange idea of proving themselves as a band. Like, this is their idea of proving themselves. This song is hilarious. I think this chorus is the closest we've got to so bad it's good territory. I think we've crossed the line on it, man. I think I actually like the chorus. It's just fucking ridiculous.
It's the way it comes in as well. it's the way it comes in as well, because the dynamic shift is quite a lot. So there's like a pause, and then the first hit just goes bam, and you're like, wait, what? Where are we? Where are we? What happened?
The way the guitars are just doing that like really slow, plodding, rising thing. Like, under the rose.
It's so regal.
It's so. This is what Alexei I put is so Spinal Tap. It sounds like a Spinal Tap song. The chorus.
Yeah.
This is just so pretentious. The last time I listened to it, I just put, okay, this is genius, because I was having such a good time. I was laughing in a room by myself at that fucking chorus.
Yeah, I think so. I think this punches through the wall into good. I think in many ways, it's so ridiculous.
It's really my favorite song on the album. Honestly, it's my favorite song on the album because it's just ridiculous. Like the first things I wrote were all negative because I was still taking it. Like we hadn't got to the chorus yet. I was like, this is the worst of pretentiousness. This sort of thing. And honestly, Alexei, I didn't like the solo.
Can you imagine?
I thought it sounds like I put phoned in, and then I realized, well, it sort of literally was almost. It was posted in.
Well, yeah, it literally was. It literally was. Could you imagine? Sorry, just on what you were saying. Could you imagine having to listen to this in silence, and every fiber of your being is like, don't laugh. Don't smile. Just make them an excuse. Go to the toilet. Something. Just don't laugh. Don't be rude.
Oh my
like,
god!
The idea that they're like, oh, we're gonna woo the critics. This is it. We're gonna show them, right? We're gonna show them. It's it. And you put this on, and then everyone starts laughing. Like, and she's like, why are they laughing? I don't understand. Like they couldn't see any humor in this whatsoever. It's just baffling to me.
It's so funny. Alex, what do you think?
Back to the boy. We're getting further. So we know the boy's special. We know this boy is really special.
He's the man-child.
And he's been told a few times now that he's an important man-child. He's too young to sail, but everyone's looking at him. He's got to do it. Here he's got to make some sort of pact. He's got to join under the rose. He's got to... These are the elders, right?
Yeah, this is like the council of the elders, aren't they? And they're kind of saying, like, are you ready to, commit?
So what you were saying earlier, Alexei, about like, this coming from the seed that was Gene's line about when the world was young, the elders old, or whatever.
Yes,
so
yeah,
this is the focal point of what Gene wanted to show everybody.
I think this is a bit like I think this is a bit like the show-stopping moment, isn't it?
Yeah. This is going to be like the big moment. This is in the Fellowship of the Ring. They all get together and they're sort of told like what is ahead of them.
This is Riverdale. This is Riverdale, isn't it? When they have to put the Fellowship together. This is like the big show-stopping. Like, okay, it's.
The adventure has begun.
It ends.
Yeah.
The adventure has begun.
So knowing all that, no idea. Absolutely no idea. In terms of like what they need to do, who the elders are, what the rose is. But it sounds big. I agree with everything you guys have said. This is hilarious. It is ridiculous.
It's staggering.
Do we know who did the guitar solo?
No.
I think it sounds alright.
No idea. No idea. I quite liked the guitar solo. I have no idea who does it though. Not a clue. I really am lost on that one. I feel like when you talk about the plot, Alex, the entire story arc of this feels like the setup, like the first act of a film or a story. It doesn't feel like a completed thing. It's like, okay, so he's the chosen one. We know he's the chosen one. Then he trains, and then the story begins. It'd be like if Fellowship of the Ring sort of ends at Riverdale before they set off. That's like the whole of this album. Yeah. It never gets into gear.
No. Can you imagine if they wanted this to be a trilogy?
Yeah.
If like this was like the first step, being like, oh, this is gonna plant the seeds, and then everyone's gonna know what's gonna happen with the boy.
That had to have been it, surely. I think. Must have done it.
No, I honestly think they thought this was a story. I think they thought this.
Oh my God!
whole
You just
stuff,
you,
like-
you just got me realizing. Sorry, Alex. I don't want to cut you off. But you just got me realize they don't even give him a fucking name. He doesn't have a name. He's just a boy.
Is the man-child.
Here's the man child. They don't even give him a fucking name.
That's the beauty of it, though. Like, you know, like Spider-Man, it's like,
Yeah.
anyone could be under the mask,
Could
sort of
be
thing.
me.
No,
The listener.
any young male.
The listener is the boy. Well,
I honestly, when I
Paul is
when I
the
heard
boy.
the first few tracks, I thought this was targeted at kids. I thought this was like, they're clearly aiming at like, I don't know, like
Yes.
Saturday morning cartoon sort of.
There
like,
is a heavy
It's
metal fantasy fandom crossover, and I think it was alive back then. And I think that's what they're going for.
yeah.
Yeah, but they totally fucking missed the boat on that, though. Massively. And they probably could have made... Because they're like, all right, okay, we're not going to not be as big as we were, but maybe we could tailor it to, like, I don't know, like, what would become the power metal crowds. You know, maybe people listening to Rainbow, Dio, shit like that. You know, if we just make it, like, heavier and sing about dragons and wizards and shit like that, maybe we can sort of tailor it to that crowd and make a bit of a career out of that. And they probably could have,
Yeah.
to a certain degree. But that's not what this is.
No.
You know, even for fantasy, it's so boring. There's no dragons. I mean, even when you get like lost, there's no creatures. There's no magic, really.
That's
I mean, it's
true.
it's that
there's no
vague.
It's just-
There's nothing. No, there's
Council
so
of the
little to
Road.
grab
That's
onto.
what I'm saying. We know nothing about them.
No,
Nothing.
no.
From this so far.
Well,
We're quite a way in now.
I know, but apparently there was meant to be like spoken word
I heard
passages
that.
to kind of, but they got rid of them, and I think they shouldn't have. I think they would have tied it together way better. It's so vague.
I would have loved it if they did that, and it was like the members of Kiss.
Yeah.
If it was like Ace talking with Paul.
Yeah. Where are we gonna go now? I don't know. I'm just a boy. Anyway, this next song I think is really where the plot is. I just completely have lost all. Like, I mean, I was lost. I was lost before. I've completely lost now. It's Dark Light. Alex, what do you think?
Oh God. Hold on. Oh, this is the Ace track, right?
This is Ace's track. This is Ace's only track. He has 2 writing credits. This is, but this is the only one he sings on.
Okay, if we're gonna ask about the plot, this is they're on the way, and like, you know, the big baddie is introduced. You know, I don't know if Ace is meant to be the baddie, but like this is where, you know, sinister stuff is going on. That's all I've got really. I don't. Oh, there's another bad guy song coming on, but okay, we'll get onto that. Okay, yeah. Let me rephrase. I don't think this is the bad guy song, like the villain of the story, but like this is like
darkness.
maybe his henchman or somebody like showing whatever is wrong with this world that they live in, like where the darkness lies. This is a really weird one from Ace. I wrote that Ace is a fairly cool dude with a cool voice, and this is not very cool at all.
Yeah,
this is really kind of a sad attempt at a song.
Yeah, it's a sad one.
Or
sad one to end on.
Yeah, I wrote, how could this work in a film? Like, it doesn't quite fit in at all. This whole thing is really clunky. Again, they've thrown a lot of what makes them Kiss out the door with this one. They have like this weird kind of like jazzy percussion stuff going on. I'm not sure what it is. But a very interesting choice, especially for an Ace song. And Alexei, do you have... I've got here on the credits.
Yeah, he got writing credits.
Yes, 100%.
Is it actually Lou Reed?
Lou Reed has 2 writing credits on this album. This is one of them, and he was friends with Bob Ezrin. Bob Ezrin produced Berlin with him, so it is Lou Reed, which is crazy because we always talked about like how we think that actually Ace kind of sounds, you know, sort of akin to Lou Reed, or at least in the same remit, sort of like talk singing and stuff like that. I don't know what he contributed on this though. I assume it's lyrics, but I don't know.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. Just make sure I read that right. This is one of those typically sort of Ace songs that really fall flat in terms of he very much goes to the wheelhouse in terms of his like singing patterns. Da, da, na, na, na. Like he really likes that sort of range. The solo is kind of cool, but doesn't really fit in at all. And you can just hear in his voice that he's just not in it. He's really, really not in it.
He doesn't give a
That's
fuck.
all I've got to
does
say
he?
on this. This doesn't fit. Yeah,
Alexei. He doesn't give a fuck. Dark Light. I don't really understand the title. Again, I have no idea what it's got to do with the plot at all. Unless it's like their attempt at trying to seem like arty and weird. You know, it's a dark light. You know, light isn't dark or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, if I hate to say this, if I was producing this, I would get through the first riff and I'd just say, no, you got to change that. It's not good. It's clumsy. It's very, very clumsy. Very annoying. Way too busy. Doesn't work. I do think Ace is quite charming, though. I think when he says Sodom and Gomorrah, I do quite like that bit.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
And then he goes, the malevolent order. I did quite like that, and I think that's his charm working reasonably well. I don't think this is great, but I would like to talk about the guitar solo because I do think the guitar solo is quite sweet, and I understand that it's bamboozling to take out all the instrumentation and just strip it down to the guitar solo and the percussion. Like, it is strange. Like, objectively, it doesn't really, really work, and it is weird for the sake of weird. But I do think because this is Ace's last record, because this is his last album, and it is quite a ripping, like, frenetic guitar solo. It's almost quite poignant, in a way. Especially when there's no chords to contextualize it. It's literally like he's just by himself with this weird sort of percussion in the background. It's sort of chaotic, and it's so chaotic that it sort of seems like he just doesn't give a fuck anymore, and this is like his final goodbye, and he just sort of goes out in a blaze of shredding, and that's it. And I do quite like that. I think that's me putting meaning onto it, but I do think it's kind of poignant in a way. It's just kind of like, I just don't give a fuck anymore. Have this, bye, and that's it. And I do quite like that. I think there's kind of like a blaze of kind of like going up in smoke quality to it that I do quite like. Other than that, I just think it's really sort of mid, boring Ace song. It's definitely not him at his best at all. As a whole, as the song as a whole. Danny, what do you think?
It starts and it goes like, and then there's a pause and it goes like,
oh, I forgot about the intro. The intro is weird.
Really long intro. And I don't know how long in it was, maybe about 10 seconds. I just went, come on! Just get on with it!
Hurry up!
Really, it was so slow to get to the song. It wasn't doing anything.
And when it comes in as well, it just explodes.
Yes, and
not in like a good way either. Not in like a it warranted that really like
embarrassing,
that timid nothing opening.
Man, that is a complex riff to them. That like it's so embarrassing.
It's really choppy and confusing and annoying.
And that against the chorus, like I really thought, did Ace get the memo? Because like he just wrote a normal, substandard Ace song and crammed a bunch of lyrics in it with like the malevolent order and busyness in the riff. Like the chorus just kind of sounds like a bad Ace song. It doesn't sound like it should fit on this album at all. The dark light.
No, not really. I agree.
I love that this happy, like how happy this ominous dark light sounds. It's like one of the happiest choruses that we've had on the whole album. It's the menacing song about the darkness. I'd love to agree with you about the solo, Alexei. You put it very well. I felt that on a moment later on the album. I just thought, I'm past being impressed at his, being like, oh, he's kind of leaning into the 80s now. He's tapping and stuff like that. And, I just thought he was playing guitar like how I play guitar when I think I'm really killing it and no one's listening. And I'm like, yeah. It's just,
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and sometimes I like that type of stuff, but no, it was just masturbatory. I get your point, Alexei, about maybe there was something, maybe that he was making a point.
Yeah, and I get your point as well. I think that's me totally putting meaning onto it.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I found some sort of good in it but I get you. I think objectively, it's not good music.
And I hate to say it, but they do sound like they're ready for a new guitarist. At this point, it just.
Yeah.
I mean, for starters, his style of playing does not fit this album anyway. So the stuff we've had from him already, I haven't liked much at all on this album. There's one moment later we'll get to it. But it's sad that this is the last album with Ace on it, because he's obviously not happy. Or at least they're not happy with his music. Because they were like cutting his solos out, weren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I have to say about this one.
It's weird as well, man, because like when you think about his solo album, and the stuff that was on it, if they're gonna do like a proggy, more artistic album, he should be the one that's sort of leading that.
That's true.
I think, based on his solo album, because there's way more sounds, way more textures, loads of kind of. Also, like, it just in terms of the instrumentals, those are great jammy moments on his albums. There's even like an odd time signature on one of the songs. There's no odd time signatures on this fucking album at all. And it's like, if you're going to pick anyone, he would make the most sense to sort of like, all right, you lead it and we'll sort of jazz it up and do things to it. Anyway.
Yeah. That's true.
A World Without Heroes. A World Without Heroes. I hate this. I think that Gene is like someone who is trying to fool everyone around him into thinking he is a sensitive, sweet man in the most pathetic way possible. And I can see straight through it. This is a dismal attempt to seem sensitive and deep from a man who 4 albums ago wrote Christine 16. It's just a complete joke. It's worse still if you see the video for this as well. At the end of it, where he's like, "A world without heroes means nothing to me." He's got a tear in his eye when he says it, and it's just pathetic. I don't know who the fuck you think you're fooling, but it's just a joke, a complete fucking joke. I can't believe Lou Reed co-wrote this as well. I think from what I gather, he just wrote the lyric. A world without heroes is like a world without sun. So, like, as far as I can gather from what I've read from anywhere, he wrote one line, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he co-wrote the song. He co-wrote it probably to seem more kind of like, oh, we can be accepted by the."
Wait, he just wrote the one line.
As far as I've read, that is all anyone has credited him towards. Maybe he wrote more. I don't know, but if that's all he did, I was like, that does not deserve a writing credit at all. And I think you're doing it just so you can appeal to the critics that like his music. If I was going to give it any credit, I'd say Paul does a nice guitar solo. I think the guitar solo he does is very, very good, but I don't think it's enough to save it. I really don't like this one. I would even maybe say it's possibly bin-worthy. It's something that might be on Gene's solo album.
I thought that.
I think.
Yeah, it sounds like a Gene.
I really don't like it. It's pompous. It's stupid. It's trying to be sensitive. And he's fooling absolutely no one. I think it's really, really dismal and boring. Really, really boring. Danny, what do you think?
You covered him. I mean, I started laughing at the start because of his singing voice. Without you.
Oh, poor
Yeah.
you. Poor you, Gene. Oh, you sad thing. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. A world without heroes.
I just have nothing to say. I have nothing to say about this. It's bad. It's really bad. I just quoted the last line. A world without hero, there's nothing to be. It's no place for me. That's all I have to say. That's my review of this song. Alex?
Shut up. This is one of the times. We talk about insincerity in this album.
Yes.
You go, you don't think that.
Fuck off.
You don't think that. There's not a sincere fucking note in this song. Also, like, sorry, fuck. What was it? Something I was going to say.
It's bad.
You said, I can't remember what it was. You said something and it got me.
I just said I was laughing at his voice.
I can't remember. Anyway, it might come to me in a second.
That's all I said.
What was that?
I was laughing at his voice. I have nothing to say. That's
laughing
all I
his
said.
voice. I can't.
Okay.
I can't. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I remember now. Fuck it. Yeah, it had nothing to do with that actually. Where is this in the plot?
Oh yeah.
Where is this in the plot?
Alex?
Who is the bit? Is this the
I'm-
boy?
Alex.
Is this the boy? Is this is this Morpheus? Who the fuck is singing? And what has happened at this point in the plot though? Because this seems like a down moment, like things are going wrong. But as far as I'm aware, nothing's really started. All right, Alex, what do you think? You're sort of charting the plot.
No, this is so. In the last song, we were introduced to the darkness, right? And if we're going by, I can't remember the name, but like the typical hero's story, it's like they hit a hurdle, and then they sort of, it's like it's bad times for them. And like for me, this is somebody speaking to the boy, or maybe happening in his head, like, oh no, you got to be strong, because if you can't do it, then there's a world without heroes, and what is a world without heroes?
Oh, so he's doubting himself.
Like, that's the best I could do. Yeah, he's down himself, and maybe someone's speaking to him, or he's speaking to himself. But this is it, and I'm trying my best here.
Thank you.
This, yeah, you guys said it. This is real poor. It's really lame. I felt this with many tracks in this album, but this one in particular. But almost every single song in this album is, when you're watching like a musical, or like some musical theater, and there's like one song where like it starts, and you're like, well, I know what this is going to be for the next 3 minutes, so I'm gonna go to the toilet. This is like every song is like that on this album, but this one in particular, you start and you go, okay, yeah, it's this song, it's this song, and it doesn't surprise you anyway, and it's just, it's a bit of a hack.
Yeah, this feels like, when you talk about musical theatre, this feels like the spotlight moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yes, exactly.
This is like what Memories is in Cats. This is like when the whole stage goes dark and there's just one spotlight or one performance. This is like that moment. Anyway, I think this should go in the bin. Personally, I think this is dreadful. I think it should go in the bin. But
I think we can consider it for the bin.
Put that one down as well. So we got
in a very different way to the other tracks.
Like we said, it's like one off his solo album. It's like bin worthy in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Next one, The Oath.
I put shit. This riff is probably the most interested I've been so far. Because it's a good riff.
Good riff.
It's a chugging riff. We got some chugging riffs, and finally we got some proper pour vocals. And that is it. It loses it so quickly. We get to the chorus and he jumps on this falsetto thing. We lose the riffage. It does come back later, but it's not enough to save it. They are so off the mark on this album. They're so off. Like, this is the best track, except Under the Rose in a different way. And it's the best track, just because it's got some chug. It's got a nice little chug. I hadn't made anything. The falsetto is so weak, Paul. I'm sorry. Paul, the falsetto is really weak.
It's really bad.
And that's all I wrote. Alex, you ready?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with it. Like I like the chug. I like the chug a lot, and I kind of got Iron Maiden-y vibes from parts of it, which we haven't really had from Kiss. So far. In
many ways, it's like
though,
it's the heaviest Kiss song we've had yet, really, which is bizarre because it's on this album.
Even though the double bass pedals and the bass itself sounds very, very muddy. I quite like the double pedal action. It's a bit different, especially on this album. It was very welcome, just as different sort of sounds. But you're right about Paul. The pre-chorus, like, you can really hear him struggling. It just isn't working out. It really isn't. And the words are very unclear and all that. And it's very unlike him in his songs. So yeah, that was really surprising. This is one of the ones where I'm like, oh, guys, like, maybe, like, could have given it another shot or something, or reworked it somehow. Because I liked some areas of this, but especially in this point in the album, I sort of gave up on it a bit. In terms of the The story, no idea on this one. Like, absolutely no idea. This is just more fantasy cliches thrown at you. Just all these random cliches about fighting and going like on a quest and all this stuff. I'm guessing he realizes that the world without heroes is not a place for me. So
he has to take
now
the oath,
marching on to whatever he needs to do, which we still don't know what this boy needs to do.
Yep. Vague.
Yeah.
Very vague. Right. Okay. So this is not perfect. It is very flawed. The falsetto singing in the bridge and the chorus is just unbelievably silly, and you're right, it doesn't work. But I don't know. I do think it goes pretty hard, to be honest with you. I think the riff in the verse is good. I think the riff in the verse is good. It's a good riff. I do think there's some weird note choices, and they're obviously shoehorned in. For just weird for the sake of weird. I mean, this is definitely a good song, or in its when it was conceived, probably a good song that they tried to push in weird directions unnecessarily. It could have been a good metal song, like a decent metal song. There are parts though where Paul sounds fucking fiery, like really, 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 really good. Like, there's a bit where he's like pounding my fist, and I was like, oh shit. And that's really welcome. Like, it's too little, too late as far as the album is concerned. But it's nice to have it because he's really raspy. He's really good. He's really raspy. When he's on Love Gun levels, 100,000 years levels, like he really is giving us that. At those bits, it does not forgive the falsetto in the verse. Like, weird stuff is shoehorned in. Alex made a really, really good point that I made as well. The double kicks are good, but they're really muddy, and they should have had a lot more high end. They sound way too muddy in the mix. They have not as much attack as you would want. This is by far, though, the best thing on the album, for sure. And I do think it goes pretty hard, but it's got a lot of flaws. There is a mild pass for me on this, because I do like those crispy, raspy highs, and I do think that the solo is good, and I do think the main riff does go pretty hard. Anyway, Mr. Blackwell. Fucking Jesus Christ. So this is the song that I think surely has to have been about some sort of villain. I think this must have the least to do with the plot. I don't see what this has anything to do with the plot. I haven't got a fucking clue what this could possibly be.
Mr. Blackwell.
I don't know, but I just assumed he was like sinister because, it does sound kind of sinister at the beginning. It's kind of like
it's not well,
but I've got nothing to corroborate.
It's not well.
I've got nothing that could.
It's not well.
Yeah, I've got nothing that could possibly tie that to the story. This might be, I think, the laziest Kiss song that I've ever heard. I think it sounds unfinished. I don't understand what the vibe is at all. It's not atmospheric. It's not driving. It's not heavy. I guess it's trying to be sinister at the beginning, but then it just goes to major for no real reason. Like, this goes to show as well that Paul definitely tried to deliver a lot more on the prog. Despite Bob and Gene being more into the idea, like I don't see, this isn't proggy, this isn't experimental. It just sounds like a demo. It sounds unfinished, and really, really, really boring. I got nothing. Danny, what do you think?
I mean, it should be in the bin. I think it's definitely bin worthy. Who the fuck is Mr. Black? I put no, please no. At the start, I just don't have nothing to say about it. This is terrible. I don't think this is like. Sorry, I'm really struggling to talk about this one. It is the longest vocal bend that he does in the chorus. And we can tell, and it sounds so bad. This is one of my least favorite Kiss songs ever. I mean that. This is one of the worst.
I think this is the least. It might not be my least favorite, but I would happily say this is one I think the least thought out Kiss song
I think it's
I've
nothing.
ever heard. The most like farted out lazy song.
It's just no, Alex, you go. It's terrible. It should be in the bin. I don't want to talk. I really don't like this one.
Oh, really? Okay. I agree. This one we can debate about others, but this absolutely needs to go in the Kiss bin. I agree with Danny. I think this might be their worst song ever. Like this
really?
one is so. Oh, I. Okay. Firstly, yeah, I agree with you, Alexei. I think this is a villain song. This absolutely has to be a villain song.
But what does the
sort of the lyrics and
what does the villain want?
No
What
idea.
does he want? What is he? What
No
is he going to
idea.
take over the world? Who is Mr. Blackwell? Who the fuck? Like Danny said, who the fuck is Mr. Blackwell? What does he want? What threat does he pose?
Yes, I agree with that. And what makes it even worse, Alexei, is that like typically the villain song is always like the best, the most kick-ass. There's so much to work with. There's so much you can play with.
Yeah.
And nothing from this. And let's think back to that interview we all saw a while back. And Gene was going on about how much he loves comic books and how much he loves horror films, right? Okay, Mr. Comic Book Horror Guy. Like, this is your moment to shine if you're going to write a freaking villain song.
Yeah, the demon.
And nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
So there's that sense of it in terms of if you're going to try and make a story, create a character, it just... You have no idea what's going on. It's not cool or, like, scary. Like, or, I don't know, has like, a attitude like the best villain songs do.
The most...
Or, like, intimidator or imposing.
I know, you talk about the intimidating vibe. The most intimidating thing he says in this whole song is like, "Don't like you now, and I guess I never will." I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
fucking Hannibal Lecter over here.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that stuff in terms of the lyrics and whatever they're trying to do with the story here. But then, like, when I say, like, it might be one of the worst Kiss song, because we always complained about before about, like, plot and how slow and just repetitive and how much the song just go on and on. I mean, this takes plot to a ridiculous level. In just sort of the boom, dong, dong. It's just so slow, and I don't know what they did to that bass. Like, I don't know, but it's just so... Like, the way it, like, vibrates, or... It sounds like the bass string is incredibly, like, loose.
It's just got a lot of... It's just got some, like, echo and drive on it, but the
it sounds awful.
I think it sounds bad as well. I don't think it's a good bass tone at all. And also, you know what it sounds like? It sounds really rushed as well. Like they put the two things on and kind of went, "Oh, that kind of sounds cool." Let's just leave it. This, you know, we talk about come down songs, Bob Ezrin come down songs. I think this is after like
this is the worst.
Good week of smashing lines of cocaine.
I prefer God of Thunder 100%. To this fucking song, man. It makes God of Thunder seem like a masterpiece. This is such a bad song.
Oh yeah, no, God of Thunder is way better than this.
Yeah,
I think there's a good song in God of Thunder because there's a good riff. I mean, the riff is good. There's not in this. No, there's fucking nothing to work with in this.
But this riff here, like that bass riff, boom, boom, dum, dum, and like that's it, just repeated over and over again, and it's so long.
Oh,
it's so long. Every time I listen to this, when it got to the third verse, every time I would give it just a big sigh, just like, oh, it just keeps on going, even when you think it's about to end.
It's just stalling.
Really, it
stalls constantly. It's always stopping and starting and stuff, and you think it's ending, and then it just goes back to the verse. You're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
The
other,
as I said, going in the Kiss bin might be one of the worst.
Yeah, I think it probably should. There's a really annoying thing as well where they kept in the because his bass has quite a lot of drive on it and a lot of echo. They kept like his fingers scraping on the fretboards in between, the hits and stuff like that. And I just think that's just it doesn't sound. It's obviously they're trying to sound weird. It just sounds lazy.
Yeah,
it just sounds amateurish and lazy and incompetent. It doesn't sound kind of interesting or weird. You're just like, oh, you forgot to edit that out. Anyway. Escape from the island. I've got like, probably the least I've written is about. I've got, I'll just read out my notes as they're written. I've got what island? Question mark. Meh, it's all right. Should not be on the album. Kind of a nice little jam. Eric is a good drummer. And then I put not even a ripping guitar solo, question mark. And then I put again, what island are they referring to? And that's it.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
You go. Yeah.
I put at least there's some energy here. Was the first thing I put. Well, this is fast. It's rocking. It does just sound like a soundtrack bit. This is the most like a soundtrack it sounds. It just sounds like they're escaping the island. So I suppose it's accurate. I said it all the way back at Love Theme from Kiss off the first album. They are neither technically proficient enough nor interesting enough as songwriters to pull off an instrumental. You really have to be able to do that. And I don't think they are. However, I disagree with Alexei. I thought the solo kind of killed it and was how I felt about how you felt about which song was that? Dark Light.
Dark Light.
Yeah, I thought the solo here was the closest thing I'm gonna get to a sort of a send off because he's just letting loose. I read Bob Ezrin played bass on this. That is just a jam between.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And of course, I put the bass is good. And of course, fucking Bob Ezrin's playing it. I honestly think it's one of the better songs on the album. I guess it's one of the better songs on the album just because it's a little rocking jam. But it's not amazing, Alex.
I really don't have much to say on this. Yeah, it's just, it's a little rocking jam. To me, it's kind of cheesy as shit. Like, especially if you imagine, like, they're doing it for the soundtrack that they have in this film they have in their mind. And yeah, they've just met the villain, or they've just done something with the villain, and now they're escaping from the island. Whatever.
What?
Yeah, the island
what
is.
Island?
Whatever it means. Yeah.
Alex, could you please?
What
Well,
island are
they were
talking
sailing
about?
earlier, so there's something to boats and islands going on. Who knows? But imagine this being in a film. It'd be them just sort of like running around and people chasing them. I don't know. It's just thrown in carelessly, kind of without much thought. Yeah, it's competent. That's it, really.
Right. The next one. The last song on the album. Alex, what do you think?
This is if this is a film, this is the song that plays in the credits, right? They've escaped from the island. Maybe they've conquered Mr. Blackwell. whatever.
I think I don't know. I think this is more like he's kind of going on the quest. It's like, yeah, I believe in myself. Let's go. Does that make sense?
I think it's too victorious.
It's like
it's too like we've done it sort of thing.
Done what?
Escaped from the island.
What's been achieved?
Escaped from the island.
They've fucking disemboweled Mr. Blackwell.
Ripped him to shreds.
But on the song itself, this is probably the most Kiss song we've had on the album, right? It's a rallying
cry.
A previous work.
It's an anthem.
I like again the idea of Gene and Paul being on the same track. Gene sounds pretty good. Sorry. Paul sounds pretty good here. Gene does not. My God. His little ad-libs, his fills, every time it's just like this drunk uncle just cutting in each point. My God. It's too much. What do you guys think about this chorus? I guess it's kind of catchy, but it's so wordy. Like, I don't really see how this one really works if they want it to be like a big like rallying cry.
I think
one
it's
day gigs or something.
I think it's it's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? I haven't thought about that. I mean, I guess it's like, you talk about them shoveling in like random notes or random, sounds or like that don't really like fit or different kind of weird chord changes.
Because I believe in something. Because I believe in me.
Yeah, you are sort of following it and you're like, where's this go? It's like, and I believe in something more than you can understand. Yes, and you're like, okay, yeah, it doesn't really resolve it. It definitely overstays its welcome. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Last two things. We have finger snaps. Big fan of those. Just really caught me off guard. The little. Hopefully we'll get some more of those in 80s stuff. And in terms of the story, like nothing. Like this whole thing, I'm guessing this is the boy believing in himself, and yeah, I did it because I believed in myself. Really doesn't fit in at all. With whatever his special power was that meant he was chosen at the beginning or anything do we want to talk about the very last part of the track as well, Alexei? In the remaster they're connected.
Yeah.
In the
Let's
original,
talk about them
they're
together.
separate.
Are they? Are they actually? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you got to talk about the outro, 100%. Well, hang on. How about we all talk about the track musically, and then we'll talk about the bit at the end, like it's an extra track. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then Danny, go on. What about
the riffs, the melodies, and the arrangements, and everything on this album is so grating. It's so hard to listen to. I could not pay attention to this song. I fell out every time I listened to it. I stopped listening. My mind just started wandering. When the chorus first came in, I brought up secondhand embarrassment earlier. That this was the moment it really hit me. I was starting to feel sorry for them. This is such a, what makes it more embarrassing is that they really are putting in effort. They're trying their darndest to write a catchy chorus there. But you're right, Alex. It's so wordy. It's so all over the place. It's so budget queen, this chorus. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like you said, I believe in something more than something more than I believe. It's just not good. And like, I agree with you, Alex, about Gene's vocals, but I don't even think Paul's killing it on this. I was about to write how Paul's not on form, and then Gene comes on. And it's like, that's where I agree with you. It's like, so I kind of don't agree with you, Alex, that they should sing together, because it just makes Gene look even worse. When Gene comes in, I get your point. I like the idea. Yeah. I liked it on the last track of Dynasty when it's Paul and Ace. What track was that? Whatever that one was. That was good.
Yeah.
Here,
Save Your Love.
That's it. Yeah, that's grown on me, that one, because it's so catchy. All the rest I wrote was just for the epilogue bit. So Alexei, what do you think?
Pretty much the same. I don't really have much to say. I don't think it's great. Again, Alex is right. Actually, you're both right. The chorus is very, very wordy. Budget Queen is spot on. Also, I think as well. By the way, Gene is very proud of this one. He's really proud of the sentiment. He says that this song reflects his philosophy the most.
Well,
like his kind of philosophy on life. I believe in me, very like self-determination. Nothing much. I mean, I think as well, like, because it's a concept album, you got this story. It's meant to kind of be this epic concept album. You would have thought they would have gone off with more of a bang.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's so anticlimactic.
When you think of some other it's really anticlimactic. The way if you think of the way like Francis the Mute by the Mars Volta ends, or Lateralis, or even like Siberian Cat 2 on Fragile and stuff like that. There's just this really like massive epic long instrumental.
Hold on, it's not the end. It's not the end.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not the end. Musically, it is the end. Musically, it is the end of our journey. But I think musically they should have ended on something like just a bit more epic, a bit more climactic. I think Alex, I guess, makes a good point when it's like, there's like credits going up and stuff
It
like
does
that.
sound
But
like
then
that, yeah.
if this is the credits going up, then Escape from the Island, I guess, is the climax, like the big climactic moment, which it just, oh, fucking hell, if that's the climactic moment, that's just embarrassing.
Ooh,
Really embarrassing.
guess we got off that island, eh?
You know, like Escape from the Island should have just been like, you know, I guess like a B-side, you know what I mean? Like a rarity, like a collectible. And you'd be like, oh, that's kind of nice, interesting piece of history. This shouldn't be on a fucking album. That's just ridiculous. Anyway, let's talk about the outro. So I made this point before, and I'll just go back to it again. The outro made me wonder, like, if the whole story is just the first part of the film. Like, this feels like the first act. So anticlimactic.
Right, yeah.
It's so anticlimactic. Like, this should... He gets his powers, whoever this boy is, gets his powers, and, you know, and that's kind of it. He sort of gets a blessing of, like, yes, he is the chosen one. Now go off and fight the bad guy or save the world or do whatever. And then his quest. This feels like his quest has begun. This ends where the quest should begin. It never takes off. It never, ever, ever, ever takes off. You know, this whole thing feels like a training sequence. Do you know what I mean? It feels like, you know, it's fucking laughable. This outro, it's very, very, very tacked on, very, very silly, very cheap sounding, and rubbish. Alex, what do you think?
Imagine watching the film, and then like the last scene of the film was somebody going, he looks very good. What do you think? And they, like, is he a right champion? And the guy says, I certainly do.
Like,
and then that's the end
credits.
of the film. The I certainly do is just such a terrible line to end like a it's a terrible line to end like a story on. Unbelievably flat.
Yeah,
like so flat.
Yeah, it falls hard. Could you imagine being the Red Cube executives then? At that point, in complete silence, and it ends on that. You're like, pardon me, was that it? Was that it? It's over now. What's that in relation to?
It really made me feel like the whole thing is a joke. Like, it's such like a ridiculous ending, such a joke of an ending to be like, see, it's a story. We had some little flutes at the beginning go do, 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 and at the end they come back. It's a story. So unbelievably lazy, not thought out one bit. Wow.
I think you guys have covered it. I was just laughing. It's just funny and stupid. let's talk about how we feel about the album as a whole.
Yeah, let's do it. In terms of the concept, I have no fucking idea what is going on. Like, I know the plot vaguely from reading about it, but it does not play out through the songs. You would not be able to know what the fuck was going out just through the songs alone. The comic book front cover from Unmasked had a better plot that was easier to follow than this. Even in the correct order. Fuck, God knows how this played out on the original release. Like the original release when the order was completely messed around. Like, if it's that hard to follow now, like, fucking God knows what it would have been like in the original order. Like, the proggier cuts, which for the most part I think are at the front end of the album.
Yeah.
I think that those moments are incredibly dated, pompous, and very, 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 very silly. Like, the second half of this album are just a lot of really half-baked rock songs, I think, with kind of random weird shit thrown in for not much reason, whether those are note choices or, you know, sounds or sections or whatever. The production as well seems really, 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 really rushed, you know, and at its worst, it sounds like a demo. My overall reaction to this is more kind of just bewilderment. I think it's less frustrating and taxing than other Kiss records. And there are bold choices on it, for better or worse. However, those choices are not sincere in any way. They're attempting, a sound that none of them have any interest in or passion for. Like, never in an interview bar, like, have they mentioned any of these bands, being a fan of them or caring about them? Like, bar Rush. But even then, in those interviews, when they do talk about Rush and enjoying Rush's music, they always make a point of saying that their favourite Rush album is the first one, the first self-titled album, which is way more straightforward. It's more kind of straightforward blues-based rock music than it is, like, progressive. It makes me truly believe this album in parallel universes and that they exist, because in another universe, this would have been an idea they toyed with, but ultimately shelved, and there would have been a lot of what if questions, of whether this exists. This is kind of like, it would have been like a Hodorowski's Dune or like Weezer's rock opera that they were going to make. Like, it makes me wonder, like, whether there is some sort of world where this had been a success and they would have carried on making albums like this. Like, it's such an oddity and bewildering, but it's also very lazy at times. There's kind of one decent track, in my opinion, and some other funny, beguiling nonsense that kind of keeps you engaged somewhat. I think it's better than Hotter Than Hell. I think it's better than Rock and Roll Over. But that's by virtue of it kind of having those moments of just complete confusion. I love the story around it a lot more than the actual album. The context is fantastic, but that is not the album. By the way, when I wrote these notes, I forgot Jeans was at the bottom. So I think it's better than Jeans, and I think it's maybe better than Hotter Than Hell, and better than Rock and Roll Over. But I can be persuaded otherwise. In fact, talking about it, I do wonder actually whether it's better than those. Probably not, actually.
Alexei, did you say that you loved the concept? Or did I mishear you just
No,
said?
Context. I like the context of which it was made.
Okay, thank God.
No, I do not like the concept. I don't know what the concept...
I mean, the elders,
fucking is.
What are they about, eh?
I was hoping it enlightened me. This is what the fuck the concept is.
No, I don't know what the concept fucking is.
I mean, that Mr. Blackwell, he's a
I agree. I love the context of this album. It's a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Danny, what do you think?
I think Prague was long dead at this point. I know lots of people like to say, no, it wasn't. It was still thriving. But culturally speaking, the canon of rock is the punk killed Prague. And it did that for a reason. And now the reason was pretentiousness. Musicians getting too pompous.
Yeah.
And I think people like me, people like you, Alexei, maybe you too, Alex, who like Prague, the stuff we point out that we like about it, it's mad chops. It's high concepts. Most of all,
exactly,
it's a charm of the sort of culture around that time in those early prog albums. There's a real charm to those albums. This has none of that. There's no high-level musicianship here. There is absolutely no high concept. It's literally the beginnings of a fantasy story. An incredibly generic fantasy story Tolkien has. And there's definitely no cultural charm because it's in a completely different era to those other albums. I feel like it's sort of sad because they trusted Bob. They were at a weird point in their career and they trusted Bob to bring it back. There was nostalgia for Destroyer, I think. And when I wrote that, I even started to feel it myself. A sort of nostalgia for my idea of Kiss in their, quote, glory days. The sort of mid-70s, late 70s time. Because this is something so different. All I really have to say is that it's rhythmically one of the worst albums I've ever heard. That's what I really thought about this album.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just rhythmically terrible. It's so... I think, Alex, you mentioned like Mr. Blackwell is like bringing plot to the next level. I think that's what this is. I feel like it makes...
I don't think that's Eric Carr's fault either. I think he's a good drummer. But I just think he's just been given these songs and just
Yeah.
been told what to do. Because there's bits like on Escape from the Island and The Oath where you can tell he's got like fucking mad chops.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't come across.
I feel like it's almost as like this album deserves a crazy amount of time, like an obsessive person to go crazy about it and like learn everything about it. It's that sort of album. I would love.
I think it's.
Go on, Alexei.
I think I'm just saying that like the defenders of this album are fucking mad.
Man,
like,
I just
don't understand
reviews.
It.
Some people
at all.
love it, man. I was on Rate Your Music, and so many people said like I saw one guy was like, why is no one talking about how it wasn't released with the proper track order? Once you hear it like that, it makes a huge difference.
I don't actually think, even though I've not heard it in the original, I don't think that would make much of a difference. The songs aren't changed. You know,
people really defend.
You haven't changed. You haven't actually changed the music on it. You've just reshuffled it to make it make less sense.
Yes, I think I could go on actually, but really, I think honestly, man, I came in with just above Gene's album when I thought about ranking this. I think Hotter Than Hell has mainline. And this has Under the Rose, which is funny. But I don't think it's got anything else. I definitely wouldn't allow for it to be higher than like self-titled. So Rock and Roll Over is below self-titled, right?
No. I want to make this clear. I think the self-titled is a lot better than this. The self-titled is like 3 good songs and 1 really good riff on it, and then that's it.
I'll talk about it. I'm open for discussion to where it lies with Hotter Than Hell and Rock and Roll Over, but really, I think this is in between Hotter Than Hell and Gene right now.
Out of curiosity, what do you think this has over Gene's album?
Under the Rose.
All right, fair enough.
Alex?
Yeah, no, I'll take that. Just out of curiosity, Daddy, because you seem to have had the most negative reaction to it, and my reaction is fair. Do you think this album deserves all the hatred and reputation, like a negative reputation that it has?
No, not really, because it's got a hell of a reputation.
Oh, okay. So you don't think it's like one of the worst?
I just think if one album's gonna have that, it should be Gene's. Gene's should have been mocked and panned by critics, but it's just that album wasn't a Kiss album; it was a Gene album. No, I think that's look. I said at the start, I'm all for them going for it, and even though I agree, Alexei, that it's completely insincere. It is high effort. It's almost paradoxical, especially from Paul. The stuff we said at the start about Paul, like I don't think his heart's in it, but he is putting in effort, and there's a level of professionalism there that I can get on board with. Even though it's also quite either ignorant or kind of disingenuous and insincere, the way that he's going about it. I think. I could believe there's worse albums coming. I don't know yet, though. We'll have to wait and see.
There's, my personal opinion is that I think that the reason why this has so many defenders is they just like the idea of defending it.
Yeah.
I think they like the idea of saying, like, actually, you know what? Kiss made a progressive rock concept album, and it's actually pretty good. You know, and people just didn't understand it at the time. And I like the idea of that as well.
Yeah, me too.
I like the idea of being able to say that, or, you know, saying that actually Kiss have this, like, really undiscovered gem of an album, which is this kind of progressive rock concept album that was completely laughed at the time. But, you know, I kind of wish they'd done more of that. Kind of the way that, you know, I might talk about One Hot Minute by the Red Hot Chili Peppers or something like that, which I think is really underrated. But this is not it. This is more like Into the Unknown by Bad Religion. Like it just is completely insincere, completely out there. I agree with you. It's kind of like when I know this kind of seems like maybe a cliched analogy, but it's a bit like Tommy Wiseau's The Room in a sense, where like you've got this guy with lots and lots of money that's throwing everything at this thing that they're just completely not suited towards. Do you know what I mean? Just bankrolling something that they're clearly not very good at.
Oh.
And that's kind of what you get here.
I will also say that at its core, the things that I'm criticizing are still, like, it's not that different to what I've been saying all along, right? It's just more pronounced here because of the style that they're going for. It's like I've said before, you've got a perfectly good lead guitarist. Fucking use him. Let Paul loose on every song. I mean, every song I want to hear Paul belting and going for it. And they're just not, like, he seems to have done that probably less on this album than almost any. Do we hear, like, some real proper Paul vocals? He's doing his weird falsetto thing. We get a little bit of it in the Oath. And
that affects the album massive. That affects the album massively.
Yes,
I think, because one of the credits we give the other albums is like, well, it's good to have Paul back singing. He's giving us a good vocal performance, but the song's okay. But he doesn't even do that on this. He does it on one track.
Yeah, so that makes me want
he's not
to be
being
clear.
Paul on this.
I'm all on board for a pretentious fucking album. I want it to be an over-the-top, silly, camp, fantasy, heavy metal album with prog influences and orchestras.
Yeah, same.
And just for it to be this insane album that somehow has something brilliant in it. And honestly, I honestly think if it had been consistently like Under the Rose, I would have been enjoying myself so much, I would have let it all pass. And I'd be ranking it way higher. I'd have had similar to what you had with Peter Criss, Alexei, where I'm like, you know what? I'm actually enjoying this. But instead, we complain about all the proggy stuff, but actually, I think you mentioned, Alexei, it's riddled with stuff like Mr. Blackwell and and fucking just all these songs. A Dark Light. What the fuck is Dark Light? A World Without Heroes. This isn't prog. It's nothing.
It's embarrassing to call Mr. Blackwell progressive.
Yeah.
Like it is. That's why I make a really good point of saying most of the prog or the prog adjacent material is front ended on the album. There's a lot of very, very boring, very, very lazy fucking rock songs in it, and Mr. Blackwell being most of them. Like you cannot, there's almost the anti prog. It's that simple and basic and incompetent. Like if you'd say, that guy's been playing bass for a week, I would totally fucking believe you. Or that's like the first riff they figured out. It just sounds like a year 6. It sounds like a year 6 band, and that sounds like that's the opposite of prog. It's the lack of musicianship. But yeah. Sorry, Alex. What?
No, go on, Alex.
What are your feelings overall?
No, I'm just amazed by this conversation right now. In terms of why it's panned so much or compared to other stuff, I mean, it is what you guys are saying. It does stick out so much, and people do like to make fun of like a really bad miss sort of thing. Like, though we all know that Gene's solo album was really bad, but it was very consistent with what was there before, and so it wasn't shocking or anything. Well, this is a really sort of out there album, and it's very easy to make fun of. Very, very easy. And it kind of, I think it fits the narrative of Kiss at the time about them just like clawing for ideas and them being desperate. So I think for that reason, whether or not you think it's worse than some of those albums or better than some of those albums we've listened to before, I think that's why it's panned so much. But I'm quite amazed what you guys are saying. Like, for me, this album really it really sort of solidifies an idea I've had of Kiss in my head for a while, which is they really don't care about their music very much at all. Their heart really, they don't have they don't have a passion for writing music. It's really just whether it's either they're chasing trends or they're just looking for new ideas. They tick the boxes, and as soon as they tick those boxes, they're just like, okay, we're done here. And we'll move on, or that's good enough. And I kind of felt with some of their stuff before. This one, I mean, even if you guys are all saying prog. Again, I think you're being too kind in a way. I'm not sure how much like prog stuff they were listening to.
No, they weren't. They
For
weren't.
inspiration of this.
They weren't. That's the point. Or if they were, they weren't. They were listening to it in a completely surface value way.
Yeah, this album, I'm surprised, Alexei, you were saying this should go with other stuff. I think this should be right at the bottom of the list. I really do, because it fails on pretty much everything. Honestly, all the vocals sound bad. The production is bad. Like we've given props to when the albums have had decent or competent production.
It is.
The production is bad on this overall.
Yeah, it
Give
is.
a few exceptions.
It is bad. Yeah.
Yeah, even the ones that we can rely on, Paul, Ace, not there. With very, very few exceptions. Very, very few exceptions. Other than maybe a little snippet of Under the Rose, there's no way I'd ever go back to listen to any of this. And when I did for like this podcast, I mean, it is a chore to listen to. It really is a chore to listen to. And for those reasons, I think it goes at the bottom. I think it goes under G.
Fucking hell.
I don't think it was as taxing to listen to as Jeans. I think it's better produced than Heart of Hell. Heart of Hell, I actually do think physically is very fatiguing to listen to. Like the production on that is like really, really, really bad. I more have like a kind of a personal hatred towards Rock and Roll Over, so I'm willing to bar that. I hate Rock and Roll Over so much because it's just so uninspired to such a degree that it just really gets under my skin. Do you know what I mean? But I'm willing to say. Sorry, yeah, carry on.
No, I was gonna say I kind of need to find the right word because obviously they weren't. This album is inspired in a sense, but again, I don't think their heart's in it. I really don't think they care about this story they want to tell. I don't think they care about really going places. They just are literally grasping to be relevant again, or get critics to adore them or something.
I agree.
I don't think their heart's in this.
I agree.
You never hear about them talk
totally
about
not in this, but
coming up with ideas organically. Like, oh, it just came to me, and that's just the way the album went. It's always just, we decided to make this sort of album. We made the decision to make this sort of music.
We had a vote.
Yeah.
We had an anonymous ballot. Yeah. And we decided. Yeah, it's all very paint by numbers. Like well, I think that at least what this has over Rock and Roll Over is there was a lot more times when I laughed. Like I got very frustrated with Rock and Roll Over. There's a lot of times on this that I laughed and was also like, the fuck was that? What was that? What is this? Why have you done that? Like, was really, like, generally, like, when they said, like, Bob Ezrin said that when they played it for the record label, they were all just mouths wide open. Like, what have you done? And I do think it does have that quality to it, which makes it more engaging than Rock and Roll Over. And I think it's better produced than Heart of Hell. It's difficult because actually also there are 3 songs on Heart of Hell that I think are okay. It is tricky. But I'm willing.
I'll be with you guys. Usually, I would give
fold
for the effort or just to try something different, and for the bold attempts. And I have done with songs on previous albums, but with this one, what they're going for, and how just little they give a shit about it, really.
Could I pull you guys towards me in the middle?
Danny,
I think above G but below Hotter Than Hell. Is that a compromise, or are you being adamant? One of you.
Well, I'm willing to concede that like my beef with Rock and Roll Over
is personal.
Is probably just like me. Does that make sense?
Good album.
Like I think
I don't
that.
like it.
Yeah, it's a really shit album. It's a really, really bad album. But there was a lot of times during that album where I was like, oh, not this shit again. And again, where there were times on this where I was like, okay, that is mental. Why have you done that? That is insane. Why have you done that? But there's also bits where I'm just like, the incompetency is really quite something. in a purely incompetent level is sort of there are moments which are like you said, Mr. Blackwell, Dark Light, Only You, which are kind of similar to Heart of Hell, but it's better produced than Heart of Hell. I don't know. Yeah, I'll take that. Actually, yeah, I'll take that. So what? It would go at number 12, and Gene would go at number 13. Is that
we're
right?
gonna check. Would you accept that, Alex, or are you hardlining? Look,
Yeah.
I'm open to
What
this
do
going
you
below
think,
Gene.
Alex?
I'm open to it. I don't agree though. I think this has
What do you think?
Under the Rose.
Alex, sorry. So what do you think that Jeans has over this? Is it because he was coming from more of like maybe necessarily a more sincere place? That he was genuinely...
Yeah, I'm looking at the tracks now, and I can't really point to a track and be like, well, this one's, is a banger, because there isn't. But I can't say the same for The Elder. I think with Jeans, he... this is hard to talk about. Like, I think I appreciate his sincerity more on his solo album over the lack of sincerity across The Elder.
He's put.
I think
Alexei's put forward good points, man.
Because between the three of us, if we put it above Gene's solo, then
okay.
That's fine.
I'm actually.
Go
on, Alexei.
You know what I would do to compromise? Actually, I generally think Elder should go above Gene's solo because it's still got The Oath, which has some pretty kick-ass bits in it, and also it's got Under the Rose, which is one of the funniest Kiss songs that's ever been made.
I agree.
It's got those on it. Jeans really doesn't have anything. Like, really does not have anything. Like, there's loads of low points. But I will compromise on this, which is every song that's been suggested to go in the bin, I will vote to put in the bin. If I can have it slightly above, if I can have it above Jeans, I will put all the songs that we voted to put in the bin. So that's Mr. Blackwell, World of Art Heroes, Only You, and I think Danny said Odyssey as well.
I think definitely Odyssey. I fucking hate Odyssey.
So all those will go in the bin if we can have it still above Jeans.
Well, Danny, what do you think about the ranking? If you had to put it under Gene or above Gene, what would you say?
Believe that I would put it above Gene's. However, I was about to relent a bit, Alex, because you were putting forward some very good arguments. I do just think I would still put it above Gene's, although you drive a hard bargain, Alex. It's some good points. Music for the Elder is not good. So I wouldn't be up in arms if we put it below Gene's, but I still think it's above Gene.
Let's put it above Gene.
Yeah.
Let's do that, and then for the Kiss bin, we're definitely putting
Mr. Blackwell.
Right? Mr. Blackwell's going in. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Blackwell can go in. Mr. Blackwell. I personally think a World of Art Heroes.
Yeah.
Because I hate the sentiment behind it.
Only You. And
what was the one? Danny's. Yeah, that suits. I'm cool with that.
Wait, sorry. Only You and Odyssey, or just?
I don't think Just a Boy.
Only You, Odyssey. Nah, I don't think Just a Boy. I think that's. Yeah. Okay. In it goes. So next time,
where will Kiss go from here?
Yeah, we're going to find out. So next time, we have Creatures of the Night, and we're going to have to say goodbye to Ace because this will be the last studio album to feature Ace. That's very, very sad. What should we sing to leave us out? It's got to be Under the Rose.
Or we just all sing random parts of the song because it's that sort of album. We could just throw out a bunch.
All right, I'm going to do the chorus from Under the Rose.
Okay,
you
ready?
3, 2, 1. Will you sacrifice under the rose? Will you live your life under the rose? I believe with me, yes I believe with me.
I'm picking my mic so much in the end. Okay.